Have you ever noticed how two people can go through the exact same situation, yet one sinks into misery while the other finds peace? The difference is not in the situation, it is in the mind. Life will never be free of pain, disappointments, or struggles. But here's the truth: when you train your mind to see the good, everything begins to shift. A problem becomes a lesson. A delay becomes a moment of rest. A simple smile becomes a reminder of beauty. Buddhism teaches us that the quality of your life is not determined by what you face, but by the lens through which you see it. And the most powerful lens you can create is the ability to look for the good, even when the world gives you every reason not to. 1. The lens of attention shapes your reality. The human mind works very much like a camera, and the images it captures become the reality you live in. Think about it. A camera can be pointed at a broken, decaying wall, and that will be the picture it produces. But if the same camera is turned slightly to the side, it may capture a blooming flower, a golden sunset, or a smiling child. The scene hasn't changed, the world is still the same, but the picture is completely different because the lens was directed differently. In the same way, your mind is constantly choosing what to notice, and that choice determines the quality of your inner life. If you habitually zoom in on flaws, disappointments, and setbacks, your inner picture will always look dark and heavy. Your heart will feel burdened, and the world will appear hostile. On the other hand, when you consciously redirect your attention to moments of kindness, to the beauty of nature, or to signs of personal growth, your world begins to feel lighter and more supportive. Life itself doesn't always change overnight, but the way you experience it does. This is the power of attention. What you decide to focus on is what expands in your life. If you keep focusing on negativity, negativity multiplies. If you learn to focus on goodness, gratitude, and small joys, they start to shine more brightly and occupy more space in your awareness. This is why Buddhism emphasizes the practice of mindfulness. Mindfulness is nothing mysterious. It is simply the ability to guide your attention with full awareness. Instead of letting your thoughts wander like an untrained horse, you gently hold the reins and guide them where you want them to go. When you stop rushing past life and actually notice the warmth of sunlight on your skin, the gentle rhythm of your breath, or the simple sound of laughter in the distance, you are training your mind to see the good that has always been present. These small moments are often ignored because the mind is too busy chasing worries, regrets, or endless desires. But mindfulness pulls you back into the present, where goodness can be found. Attention is not just passive observation, it is active creation. Just as a gardener waters a plant to help it grow, your attention nourishes whatever you focus on. If you water weeds, they will take over the garden. If you water flowers, they will bloom in beauty. In the same way, when you consistently give your attention to complaints, anger, or fear, those emotions grow stronger and take root in your life. But if you direct your attention to gratitude, patience, and love, those qualities grow and slowly reshape the way you experience the world. The truth is, what you ignore tends to fade away, and what you notice becomes your reality. If you stop paying attention to every insult, every mistake, and every negative thought, their power over you begins to weaken. If you instead practice noticing the good, even in small, simple things, you build a habit of seeing the world as a place of opportunity and beauty, rather than a prison of problems. In time, this practice changes not only your mood, but also your character. A person who trains their mind to see good develops resilience, optimism, and inner strength because they no longer give power to negativity. So remember, your life is not only shaped by what happens to you, but also by where you point your inner lens. Direct it toward the good, and life becomes a landscape of possibilities. Leave it focused only on flaws, and life feels like a constant struggle. The choice is always yours because your attention is the tool that creates your reality. 2. Gratitude turns ordinary moments into miracles. Gratitude is one of the simplest yet most powerful practices that can transform the way you see your life. The Buddha taught that contentment is the greatest wealth, and when you truly understand this, you realize that a grateful heart is richer than the wealthiest man with no appreciation. Gratitude is not about denying pain or pretending that everything is perfect. It is about shifting your mind from what is missing to what is already present, And this shift, though small, can change everything. Think of how often we take life for granted. We open our eyes every morning, but do we pause to appreciate the miracle of being alive, of breathing, of having another chance to live this day? We eat our meals, but how often do we reflect on the countless hands that work to bring that food to our table? The farmer, the transporter, the cook. We use our bodies to walk, speak, think and feel, yet many people don't appreciate their health until they lose it. Gratitude awakens you from this sleep of forgetfulness. It makes you aware of blessings that have always been there but were hidden behind your constant focus on what you lack. When you begin practicing gratitude, even ordinary moments become extraordinary. A cup of tea is no longer just a drink, it becomes a warm comfort that soothes your body and mind. Rain falling outside is no longer just bad weather, it becomes the gift of water that nourishes the earth. A simple smile from a stranger is no longer just a passing gesture, it becomes proof that kindness exists in the world. Gratitude transforms how you interpret everything you encounter. It takes what looks small and reveals its greatness. And here's the secret: gratitude is not something you wait to feel, it is something you practice. You don't have to wait for a perfect life before being thankful. You can start right now with whatever you have. Buddhism teaches that the mind becomes whatever it repeatedly does. If you practice gratitude daily, even in small ways, it becomes a natural habit. Some people keep gratitude journals, writing down 3 things they are thankful for each day. Others pause during meals to silently appreciate their food. Even simply saying thank you more often to people, to life, to yourself, reshapes your awareness. Gratitude also protects you from bitterness and despair. When difficulties arrive, as they always do, gratitude balances the scale. You may face problems, but gratitude reminds you that life is not all darkness, that there are still sources of light. A grateful mind doesn't deny suffering, but it does not drown in it either. It finds reasons to keep moving, to stay hopeful, and to continue seeing meaning in existence. Notice also how gratitude strengthens relationships. When you thank someone sincerely, you not only make them feel valued, but you also train yourself to see the good in people instead of their flaws. Gratitude reduces envy, dissolves resentment, and creates deeper bonds of trust. In families, friendships, or even workplaces, the presence of gratitude can completely change the atmosphere. In the end, gratitude is about learning to live in abundance, even if your life is not perfect. A person who constantly chases what they don't have will always feel empty, no matter how much they gain. But a person who cultivates gratitude can feel rich even with little, because they see value where others see nothing. This is why Buddhism calls contentment the greatest wealth. It cannot be taken away, and it does not depend on external possessions. So start small. Begin with the breath that sustains you, the body that carries you, the people who care about you, the opportunities you still have. Look for them, appreciate them, and speak them into your heart. The more you practice, the more you realize that gratitude is not just an emotion, it is a lens that turns ordinary life into a miracle. Thafri. Suffering contains seeds of wisdom. At first glance, suffering feels like the enemy. It is uncomfortable, painful, and often overwhelming. Nobody wakes up wishing for hardship or hoping for sorrow. Yet Buddhism teaches us that suffering is not merely punishment or misfortune. It is one of life's greatest teachers. Within every painful experience, there are seeds of wisdom waiting to be discovered. The problem is that most people are so busy fighting against suffering, so determined to escape it, that they never pause to see what it is trying to reveal. Think about the moments in your life when you grew the most as a human being. Was it during times of ease, or was it during times of struggle? Most often, growth emerges from discomfort. A broken relationship may have taught you the importance of self-love and boundaries. A financial loss may have taught you humility and the value of simplicity. A rejection may have awakened your resilience and redirected you toward a better path. The very experiences that once felt unbearable are often the ones that shape your character, deepen your compassion, and sharpen your wisdom. Suffering, when seen through the right lens, is not the end of your story but a chapter of transformation. Instead of asking, "Why me?" you can begin asking, "What is this teaching me?" This simple shift in perspective opens the door to growth. For example, A person who loses their job may first sink into despair, but if they reflect deeply, they might realize that this loss is pushing them toward a career that aligns more closely with their passions and values. A person who faces betrayal may feel devastated, but later discover that the experience has strengthened their ability to recognize sincerity and choose better companions. Pain, though heavy in the moment, can carry lessons that protect you and guide you in the future. Buddhism teaches that suffering is one of the Four Noble Truths. It is an inevitable part of human existence. No one is immune, whether rich or poor, strong or weak, but while suffering is unavoidable, the way we respond to it determines whether it becomes a burden or a teacher. If you resist it, deny it, or drown in self-pity, suffering becomes a chain that holds you down. If you face it with awareness, curiosity, and patience, suffering becomes a doorway to wisdom. This does not mean you should glorify suffering or seek it out. Rather, it means recognizing that when it does arrive, and it always will, it carries hidden gifts. A storm may destroy branches, but it also waters the soil and strengthens the roots. In the same way, suffering can break illusions, strip away arrogance, and reveal truths that you may not have seen in comfort. It humbles you, and in that humility, wisdom begins to grow. Another gift of suffering is compassion. When you have experienced pain, you develop a deeper sensitivity to the struggles of others. You understand their tears because you have cried your own. You feel their despair because you have faced your own darkness. This shared understanding becomes the foundation of genuine kindness. Without suffering, compassion remains shallow. With it, compassion becomes real and powerful. In practical terms, the next time you face hardship, pause before reacting with anger or despair. Ask yourself, what lesson might be hidden here? What part of me is this experience shaping? How can I use this pain to become wiser, stronger, and more compassionate? You may not see the answer immediately. Sometimes the wisdom of suffering only reveals itself months or even years later, but if you keep your heart open, the lesson will eventually emerge. In truth, suffering is not here to destroy you. It is here to refine you. It tests your strength, reveals your weaknesses, and shows you what truly matters. Just as fire shapes metal into a sword, suffering shapes the human spirit into resilience and wisdom. Once you begin to see it this way, suffering loses some of its terror. You stop running from it and start learning from it, and in that moment, what once felt like a curse becomes a blessing in disguise. 3. Suffering contains seeds of wisdom. Suffering is something every human being tries to avoid. From the moment we are children, we instinctively run from pain, hide from discomfort, and search endlessly for comfort, safety, and pleasure. We create routines, surround ourselves with distractions, and chase temporary highs just to escape the uneasy feeling of being hurt. Yet no matter how carefully we build our walls, life has a way of breaking through. Illness strikes, relationships collapse, financial struggles appear, loved ones leave us, and the body ages despite our efforts to keep it young. Suffering in one form or another is unavoidable. The Buddha made this reality the very foundation of his teaching. In the Four Noble Truths, the very first truth is simple yet profound. Life inevitably contains dukkha, often translated as suffering, dissatisfaction, or unease. To live is to encounter loss, change, and imperfection. But here is where wisdom begins. Suffering is not a punishment, and it is not meaningless. It is a teacher, and within it lie seeds of wisdom that can change the way we live. Think back to your own life for a moment. When did you truly grow? When did you discover strength you never knew you had? When did you realize who you really were and what you valued most? Chances are it was not during times of ease and pleasure. It was in the difficult chapters, the heartbreak, the failures, the betrayals, the moments you thought you would never survive. These were the very experiences that stripped away illusions, humbled your ego, and forced you to look deeper into yourself. They became the teachers that no book, no lecture, no easy moment could ever provide. For example, imagine someone who has always been financially secure suddenly losing their job. At first, despair sets in. Fear fills their mind. How will I survive? How will I support my family? But as weeks pass, something unexpected happens. They discover hidden strengths. They learn resilience. They realize that their worth was never tied to a paycheck, and they may even find a new career that aligns more closely with their heart. What began as suffering eventually revealed freedom and clarity. Or consider the pain of a broken relationship. In the moment, the heart feels shattered, and the mind drowns in loneliness. Yet if you look back years later, you may realize that this pain taught you self-respect, boundaries, and the importance of valuing yourself. It may even have redirected you toward people who truly appreciate you. The wound that once felt unbearable turned into wisdom that protects you for life. Suffering also carries the gift of compassion. When you have walked through the valley of sadness, you are no longer blind to the suffering of others. You understand their tears because you have cried your own. You feel their exhaustion because you have carried your own burdens. A person who has suffered deeply often becomes softer, more empathetic, and more loving. They no longer look down on others in pain. Instead, they reach out a hand. Without suffering, compassion remains shallow. With suffering, compassion becomes real. But here lies the key. Suffering only becomes a teacher if you are willing to listen. If you resist it, deny it, or drown in self-pity, then suffering can harden your heart and fill you with bitterness. Many people fall into this trap. They see pain as injustice, as something unfair that the world has done to them. They curse their fate, and in doing so, they miss the lesson hidden within. But if you face suffering with awareness, humility, and patience, you begin to see it differently. Instead of asking, "Why me?" you ask, "What is this teaching me? What seed of wisdom is hidden here?" In Buddhism, suffering is often compared to a fire. Fire can destroy, yes. It can burn everything you love. But fire can also purify, transform, and forge. Just as raw metal is shaped into a strong sword by passing through flames, the human spirit is shaped into strength by passing through hardship. Without the fire, the metal remains brittle and weak. Without suffering, the soul remains untested and fragile. Suffering also teaches the truth of impermanence. When you experience loss, you are reminded that nothing lasts forever. Not pain, not pleasure, not life itself. This realization may feel frightening at first, but it is actually liberating. It teaches you to hold on less tightly to things you cannot control and to cherish the moments you have. Instead of wasting life chasing endless desires, you learn to value what is here, now. So the next time suffering enters your life, do not rush to escape it immediately. Sit with it, breathe with it, ask it what it has come to teach you. Perhaps it is showing you where you are too attached. Perhaps it is revealing the strength you forgot you had. Perhaps it is breaking your heart, only so it can expand your compassion for others. Every tear, every disappointment, every loss has the potential to carry a seed of wisdom if you are willing to see it. And remember, the wisdom may not appear instantly. Sometimes it takes months or even years for the gift of suffering to fully bloom. But if you keep your heart open, you will eventually look back and realize that what once felt like punishment was actually preparation. What once felt like the end was actually the beginning of a deeper understanding of yourself and of life. Suffering will always be part of existence, but whether it becomes a chain that drags you down or a teacher that lifts you higher depends on how you choose to see it. When you begin to see suffering as a teacher, it no longer has the power to crush you. It refines you, it humbles you, it makes you wiser, stronger, and more compassionate. And in that way, suffering, though painful, is never wasted. 4. Comparison destroys joy. Presence restores it. One of the greatest thieves of happiness is comparison. The human mind, when left untrained, constantly measures itself against others. We look at someone else's success and feel like failures. We see another person's beauty and begin to dislike our own appearance. We watch someone living in comfort and suddenly our own life feels small and inadequate. This constant measuring is a silent poison that slowly eats away at joy. The truth is, no matter how much you achieve, there will always be someone ahead of you. There will always be someone richer, someone stronger, someone more talented, someone more admired. If you live your life comparing your chapter to someone else's chapter, you will never find peace. Instead of celebrating your journey, you will always feel like you are behind. And the tragedy is that while you are busy comparing, you miss the goodness already present in your own life. Buddhism teaches that comparison is rooted in ignorance. When you compare yourself to others, you are blind to the reality that each life is unique, shaped by different causes, conditions, and karma. It is like comparing a tree to a flower. A tree may be tall, strong, and majestic, while a flower may be delicate, colorful, and fragrant. Each has its place in the garden of existence. Neither is superior, and neither is inferior. They are simply different expressions of life. But when the flower tries to be a tree, or the tree envies the flower, both lose their natural beauty. The same is true for human beings. Presence is the antidote to comparison. Presence means fully living in the moment you are in, without dragging your mind into someone else's story. When you are present, you no longer look sideways at others, you look inward and forward. You notice your own breath, your own steps, your own journey. Suddenly, the food on your plate becomes enough. The roof above your head becomes a blessing. The opportunities in front of you become valuable. Presence doesn't erase ambition, but it removes envy. It allows you to walk your own path without constantly checking who is ahead or behind. Think about this. When you eat an apple, do you constantly compare it to a mango, an orange, or a grape? No. You simply enjoy the apple for what it is, its sweetness, its crispness, its refreshing taste. Life is like that. Each person has their own flavor, their own timeline, their own blessings and struggles. If you keep comparing apples to oranges, you will never enjoy either. But if you are present with what you have, you discover richness in your own portion. Another danger of comparison is that it blinds you to your progress. You might have grown tremendously over the past years, but if you measure yourself against someone else who seems ahead, you forget how far you've come. It's like climbing a mountain, but always looking at the peak of another mountain. You lose sight of the height you've already reached. Presence helps you honor your progress. It allows you to look back and appreciate your growth without making it small in the shadow of another's journey. Buddhism also reminds us that comparison breeds two unhealthy states: pride and envy. When you compare and think you are better, pride inflates your ego and separates you from compassion. When you compare and think you are worse, envy fills your heart with bitterness. Both are poisons that disturb the mind. Presence dissolves both poisons. In presence, you don't need to feel superior or inferior. You simply exist as you are, growing at your own pace, walking your own path. Practical mindfulness can help you break the cycle of comparison. For example, the next time you find yourself scrolling through social media and feeling jealous of someone else's life, pause, take a deep breath, bring yourself back into your own body, your own space. Remind yourself, this is my life, these are my blessings, this is my journey. Gratitude and presence together are powerful shields against comparison. Comparison is endless because it is fueled by desire, and desire never ends. But presence is timeless because it anchors you in the reality of now. The person who masters presence no longer wastes energy looking at what others have. They invest energy into what they can create with what they already hold. This shift is not small, it is life-changing. It allows you to build confidence, peace, and joy without depending on external validation. In the end, comparison destroys joy because it blinds you to the truth of your own life. Presence restores joy because it opens your eyes to what has always been here, the simple beauty of existence. You are not meant to live someone else's story, you are meant to live your own. When you let go of comparison and embrace presence, you finally step fully into your life, and that is where real happiness begins. 5. Reframing is the art of liberation. The human mind has an extraordinary ability. It does not just record events like a machine, it interprets them. Two people can go through the same experience, yet one feels destroyed while the other feels strengthened. Why? Because the difference lies not in what happened, but in how the mind framed it. This is why Buddhism teaches us that the mind creates much of our suffering. We suffer not just because of the event itself, but because of the meaning we attach to it. If we can learn the art of reframing, of looking at experiences from a new angle, we can liberate ourselves from unnecessary pain and discover freedom even in difficulty. Think of a simple example. You are stuck in traffic on your way home. Most people immediately label this as bad. They grow angry, impatient, and stressed. But what if you reframe it? What if instead of seeing it as wasted time, you see it as a rare chance to listen to music you love, reflect in silence, or practice patience? The external situation hasn't changed, but the experience has become lighter because your perspective shifted. This is the essence of reframing, changing how you see a situation, and in doing so, changing how it affects you. Life is filled with events we cannot control: rejection, delays, failures, illnesses, sudden changes. The instinctive reaction is often frustration, sadness, or despair. But Buddhism reminds us that every situation is made up of countless causes and conditions, and within those conditions lie opportunities for growth. A failed exam can be framed as humiliation or as feedback showing where you need to improve. A lost job can be framed as a catastrophe or as an open door leading you toward a more fulfilling career. Even aging can be reframed, not as a cruel theft of youth, but as a deepening of wisdom and a reminder of life's preciousness. Reframing does not deny reality. It does not pretend that pain isn't painful or that loss isn't heavy. Instead, it asks, is there another way to look at this? Is there a seed of wisdom, growth, or opportunity hidden in this hardship? When you ask these questions, you stop being a victim of circumstances and begin to reclaim your power. You cannot control the wind, but you can adjust your sails. That adjustment is reframing. In Buddhism, there is a powerful teaching about how suffering arises not from events themselves, but from how the mind clings and labels. When something unpleasant happens, the mind quickly calls it bad and resists it, creating double suffering, the pain of the event and the pain of your reaction. But if you reframe the event, if you see it as impermanent, as a lesson, as an opportunity, you break the chain of unnecessary suffering. For example, if someone insults you, your first thought might be, this is disrespect, this is humiliation. But reframed, it can become, this is a test of my patience, this is a chance to practice self-control. Instead of anger consuming you, the insult becomes your teacher. The art of reframing is like polishing a stone. At first, the stone looks rough, ordinary, and dull, but with the right angle of light and a little care, you discover it is a gem. Life is the same. Many experiences that appear painful or useless can, when reframed, reveal hidden value. Sometimes, the things you thought were setbacks were actually redirections. Sometimes, the things you thought were curses were actually blessings in disguise. Reframing also builds resilience. Life will always throw challenges at you. If you can only see them in one rigid way, you will break under the weight. But if you train your mind to look from different angles, you become flexible, like bamboo that bends but does not snap in the storm. You learn that even though you cannot always choose what happens, you can always choose how to see it. That choice is where your freedom lies. Practical mindfulness helps you strengthen this ability. The next time you feel frustrated, pause and breathe. Instead of reacting immediately, ask yourself, is there another story I can tell about this? How else can I see this? Even a small shift can make a big difference. Imagine someone cutting you off in traffic. Instead of immediately thinking, that person disrespected me, you might reframe it as, maybe they are rushing to help someone, or maybe they are simply distracted. I too have made mistakes. Suddenly your anger lessens, and you feel lighter. Reframing is not self-deception, it is self-liberation. It does not change the outer world, but it transforms your inner world. And when your inner world changes, your entire experience of life changes with it. You begin to see that obstacles are also opportunities, endings are also beginnings, and every experience, no matter how difficult, has something to offer. In the end, the art of reframing is the art of freedom. It frees you from being chained to one interpretation, one reaction, one rigid way of seeing things. It reminds you that perspective is powerful, and that by shifting your perspective, you can shift your entire life. Events may come and go, but the meaning you give them stays with you. If you learn to give them empowering meaning, even the darkest moments can become stepping stones toward wisdom and peace. 6. Compassion expands the circle of good. Human beings are naturally drawn to think of themselves first. From the moment we are born, our minds revolve around our needs, our fears, and our desires. This is not wrong, it is part of survival. But if life remains only about me and mine, the world begins to feel narrow and suffocating. When you only see your own struggles, your suffering feels heavier. When you only chase your own gain, joy feels hollow. But the moment you widen your vision to include others, something extraordinary happens. The world becomes lighter, warmer, and more meaningful. This widening of the heart is what Buddhism calls compassion. Compassion is not pity, nor is it weakness. Compassion is the deep understanding that every person you meet carries invisible struggles, fears, and dreams, just like you. It is the recognition that beneath the surface of differences, all beings share the same wish to be happy, to be safe, to be free from pain. When you realize this, you begin to treat others with more gentleness. And each act of compassion, no matter how small, creates ripples of goodness that spread far beyond what you can see. Think about the last time you were in pain, whether emotional or physical. Didn't a kind word, a supportive gesture, or even a simple smile from someone make the burden feel lighter? That is the power of compassion. Now imagine being the one who offers that to others. The beauty of compassion is that it heals not only the receiver, but also the giver. When you extend compassion, your own heart softens, your mind becomes less obsessed with negativity, and your life begins to feel more connected and purposeful. Buddhism teaches that compassion is one of the greatest antidotes to suffering because it dissolves the illusion of separateness. Most suffering is magnified by the belief that we are alone, cut off from others. But compassion breaks down these walls. When you practice compassion, you realize that your pain is not unique. It is shared by millions. This realization does not diminish your struggle, but it gives you strength because you see that you are part of a larger human story. Compassion also transforms the way you interpret the actions of others. For example, when someone speaks harshly to you, your instinct may be to feel insulted or to retaliate, but compassion reframes the moment. Instead of asking, "Why are they against me?" you ask, "What pain might they be carrying?" Maybe their anger comes from stress, loneliness, or a wound you cannot see. With compassion, you shift from judgment to understanding. This does not mean tolerating abuse or allowing harm, but it does mean responding with wisdom rather than blind hatred. Another remarkable truth about compassion is that it expands your sense of joy. If your happiness depends only on your personal victories, it will always be limited. But if you can find happiness in the joy of others, your opportunities for happiness multiply endlessly. Imagine seeing someone else succeed, and instead of feeling jealousy, you feel genuine gladness for them. Imagine watching a child laugh, a stranger reunited with their loved one, or a friend achieving their dream, and letting that joy touch your own heart. This is called mudita in Buddhism, sympathetic joy, and it arises naturally when compassion deepens. Compassion is also a practice that grows with time. At first it may feel unnatural, especially if you have been hurt or betrayed, but like a muscle, compassion strengthens with use. You can begin with small steps, offering a smile to a stranger, listening patiently to someone's story, forgiving minor mistakes, or even silently wishing others well. Over time, this practice extends outward to family, friends, colleagues, strangers, and eventually even to those who have wronged you. When compassion reaches this level, your circle of goodness becomes vast, and very little can disturb your inner peace. On a deeper level, compassion is not just about kindness to others, it is also about kindness to yourself. Many people are harsh with themselves, carrying guilt, shame, and self-criticism. But true compassion does not exclude the self. When you forgive yourself, when you treat your own wounds with gentleness, you develop the ability to extend the same care to others. A heart hardened against itself cannot fully love others, but a heart softened by self-compassion can embrace the world. Practical mindfulness exercises can help awaken compassion. For instance, in loving kindness meditation, you sit quietly and silently repeat phrases like, "May I be safe, may I be happy, may I be free from suffering." After a few moments, you extend these wishes to others, first to loved ones, then to strangers, and finally even to people you struggle with. This practice gradually expands your heart until you realize that every being, without exception, is worthy of compassion. In the end, compassion is not just an emotion, it is a way of seeing the world. It teaches you that life is not a competition of isolated individuals, but a shared journey. Your joy is connected to the joy of others, and your healing is connected to their healing. When you live with compassion, you begin to see goodness in places you once overlooked. You begin to notice that despite all the suffering, there is also kindness, generosity, and love constantly flowing in the world. Compassion expands the circle of good because it multiplies light wherever it is practiced. A small act of compassion, a word, a gesture, a thought, can travel further than you will ever know. And the more compassion you cultivate, the more you see that life itself is brighter, softer, and more beautiful than you once believed. 7. Training the mind is a lifelong practice. One of the greatest misconceptions people carry is that transformation is a one-time event. We think if we read a single book, listen to a single teaching, or experience a single breakthrough moment, everything will suddenly change forever. But reality does not work that way. The mind is not a switch that can be flipped once and remain permanently in the light. The mind is more like a muscle, one that requires daily training, stretching, and strengthening. If you stop exercising a muscle, it weakens. If you stop training the mind, it slips back into old habits of fear, negativity, and distraction. This is why Buddhism emphasizes that cultivating the mind is not a one-day project but a lifelong practice. Consider how easily the mind falls into patterns. One moment you may feel calm, grateful, and focused, and the next you find yourself irritated, restless, or lost in worry. This instability is natural because the mind is constantly influenced by thoughts, memories, and external events. Left untrained, the mind behaves like a wild horse, running in every direction, chasing every impulse and exhausting itself in the process. But with steady training, the mind can be guided, disciplined, and ultimately transformed into a source of clarity and peace. The practice of training the mind begins with awareness. Awareness means noticing where your attention goes, what emotions arise, and how your thoughts shape your perception of reality. For example, if you wake up and immediately start comparing yourself to others, awareness helps you catch that habit and redirect it toward gratitude for your own life. If anger flares when someone speaks harshly, awareness allows you to pause before reacting and to choose a more compassionate response. This constant returning to awareness is the foundation of lifelong training. But awareness alone is not enough. Training the mind also requires consistency. Just as a musician must practice scales daily to master their instrument, you must practice mindfulness, compassion, and gratitude daily to master your mind. A single meditation session may bring peace, but it will not erase years of conditioning. A single act of forgiveness may soften your heart, but it will not remove the tendency to hold grudges. True transformation happens slowly, like drops of water wearing away stone, not in dramatic bursts but through steady persistence. This is why Buddhism often uses the metaphor of walking a path. Enlightenment is not a destination that you reach after one leap. It is a path you walk step by step, breath by breath, moment by moment. Some days you may feel like you are making progress. Your mind feels calm, your heart feels open. Other days you may feel like you have stumbled backward. Anger rises, impatience grows, old habits return. But both days are part of the practice. Both are necessary for growth. The key is not to expect perfection, but to remain committed to the path. Think of how a gardener cares for a garden. They do not plant seeds and expect a forest to appear overnight. They water daily, remove weeds, and nurture the soil, even when growth is invisible. Slowly the plants rise, and eventually the garden flourishes. Training the mind is the same. You plant seeds of mindfulness, gratitude, compassion, and wisdom through daily practice. At first, progress may be invisible, but with patience, your inner garden blossoms. One of the challenges people face is discouragement. They meditate a few times, try to think positively for a week, or attempt to practice compassion, and when results do not come quickly, they give up. But imagine if a student gave up learning music after 1 week, or if a farmer abandoned the field after 1 season. Great results require time. The mind has been conditioned for years, often decades, to react negatively. Expecting it to transform instantly is unrealistic, but if you see training as a lifelong journey, discouragement fades. You no longer demand instant results, you simply keep practicing, trusting that progress is being made even when it is not obvious. The lifelong nature of training the mind also reveals that learning never ends. Even the wisest teachers continue to practice. Even monks who have meditated for decades still face moments of distraction or struggle. The difference is that they do not see this as failure, they see it as part of the path. In fact, the humility to keep training no matter how far you've come is itself a sign of wisdom. The moment you believe you have arrived, growth stops. The moment you accept that training is lifelong, growth becomes endless. Training the mind also means adapting to different seasons of life. When you are young, your challenges may be impatience, ambition, or comparison. As you age, your challenges may become regret, attachment, or fear of loss. The mind must be trained differently in each season, but the principle remains the same: awareness, patience, and compassion. Lifelong training allows you to meet each stage of life with strength and clarity. Another dimension of lifelong practice is that it builds resilience. When you train daily, you create inner reserves of strength. In ordinary times, you may not notice this strength, but when a crisis comes, a loss, a betrayal, an illness, you find that your mind is steadier, your heart is calmer, and your ability to endure is greater. Just as an athlete prepares long before the race, training the mind daily prepares you for life's inevitable storms. There is also joy in the practice itself. Training the mind is not only about discipline, it is about discovery. Every day you discover new depths of gratitude, new insights into yourself, new moments of peace. Each step on the path is not merely a struggle to improve, it is an opportunity to experience the richness of life more deeply. Instead of seeing practice as a burden, you can see it as a gift, the chance to live more awake, more present, more alive. So what does this lifelong training look like in practical terms? It can be as simple as setting aside 10 minutes a day to sit in silence and watch your breath. It can be pausing throughout the day to notice moments of beauty, to give thanks, or to choose compassion instead of judgment. It can be reflecting each evening on your actions, asking where you grew and where you need more patience. It can be speaking kindly to yourself when you fail and trying again the next day. These small acts, repeated consistently, shape the mind over time. The Buddha compared the mind to a field. If you neglect it, weeds of anger, greed, and ignorance will grow. If you care for it daily, seeds of wisdom and compassion will flourish. But a field is never finished. It must always be tended, season after season. The same is true of the mind. Training never ends, because life never stops presenting new challenges and new opportunities for growth. In the end, training the mind is a lifelong practice because life itself is a lifelong practice. Every breath, every thought, every action is part of the training. The goal is not perfection, but progress, not a final destination, but a steady journey. The more you train, the more natural it becomes to see the good, to respond with kindness, and to live with peace. And perhaps the most beautiful truth is this: the very act of training is itself the reward. Each moment you return to awareness, each moment you choose compassion, each moment you practice gratitude, you are already living the fruits of the path. Life does not suddenly become free of challenges, but it becomes filled with meaning. You realize that the mind, once your greatest obstacle, has become your greatest ally, and with this ally by your side, every day becomes an opportunity to grow, to serve, and to see the goodness that was always there. 8. The good you seek is already within you. Most people live their entire lives searching outwardly for happiness, peace, and goodness. They believe that if they can find the right job, the right partner, the right amount of money, or the right circumstances, life will finally feel complete. This endless pursuit makes life feel like a race with no finish line. Yet Buddhism teaches us a truth so simple that it is often overlooked. What you are seeking is not outside of you, it is already within you. The seeds of peace, joy, and goodness are planted deep in your heart and mind. The task of life is not to search for them in the world, but to cultivate them within yourself until they bloom. Think about it. When you feel grateful, where does that feeling exist? It does not come from the food on your plate, but from the recognition within your mind that the food is a blessing. When you feel compassion, it is not created by another person, it is awakened within you by your choice to care. Even happiness, often believed to be the result of external pleasures, actually arises from the mind's interpretation of those pleasures. The same meal can make one person joyful and another indifferent. The same home can feel like a palace to one person and like a prison to another. Clearly, joy and peace do not come from the outside, they come from the inside. This truth is liberating because it means you are not powerless. You do not have to wait for life to hand you perfect conditions before you can feel good. You can begin to experience goodness right now by training your mind to notice, appreciate, and nurture what is already present. Just as a gardener does not run to another field to look for flowers but waters the seeds in their own soil, you must learn to water the seeds of goodness within yourself. The Buddha often used the metaphor of a lamp. A lamp can illuminate a dark room, but only if you light it. In the same way, your mind already has the light of wisdom and compassion, but you must ignite it through practice. Too often people wander in darkness, thinking the light is somewhere else, hidden in wealth, status, or the approval of others. But the light has always been within. Once you light it, you realize that what you were seeking outside was present in you all along. The problem is that many people bury this inner goodness under layers of negativity. Fear, anger, jealousy, and doubt act like clouds covering the sun. The sun is still shining, but you cannot see it because of the clouds. Training the mind is like learning to gently move those clouds aside. Mindfulness, gratitude, compassion, and presence are the tools that clear the sky, allowing your inner light to shine through. When the clouds fade, you see clearly that peace was never missing, it was simply hidden. Let us look at some examples of how this inner goodness can be awakened. Imagine someone insults you. Your first reaction may be anger, but if you pause and look inward, you may discover patience and forgiveness waiting beneath the surface. By choosing forgiveness instead of anger, you awaken goodness already within you. Or consider a moment of loneliness. Instead of drowning in sadness, you may reflect inwardly and discover resilience and self-love. You then realize that you are not as empty as you thought, you carry strength within. Another way to understand this is through the Buddhist practice of meditation. When you sit quietly and focus on your breath, you are not importing peace from outside, you are uncovering the peace that was already there, hidden beneath layers of restlessness. At first, the mind resists, thoughts jump, emotions pull, and discomfort arises. But as you continue practicing, you begin to notice moments of stillness. These moments are not new, they were always within you. You simply had to sit still long enough to experience them. This truth is also visible in the way we perceive beauty. A person walking through a forest may see nothing but ordinary trees and mud, while another person walking the same path feels overwhelmed by the beauty of the sunlight filtering through the leaves, the music of birds, and the fragrance of the earth. What is the difference? The forest is the same. The difference is in the mind of the observer. One sees beauty, the other does not. The capacity to see goodness lies within the observer, not in the object itself. Realizing that goodness is within also protects you from the trap of endless desire. Modern life constantly tells you that you need more possessions, more recognition, more experiences to be happy. But the more you chase, the more restless you become, because desire has no end. When you discover that the source of goodness is within, you stop running after illusions. You learn to be content with what you have, because you know that happiness is not a distant prize, but a choice available now. This does not mean you stop striving for improvement or abandon your dreams. It means you no longer make your happiness dependent on external results. You can pursue goals with enthusiasm, but whether you succeed or fail, your inner peace remains steady. You stop being a prisoner of circumstances. This is true freedom. The practice of seeing the good within also transforms how you relate to others. When you recognize that you carry seeds of goodness, you begin to recognize the same in others. Even people who act harshly or selfishly carry seeds of kindness and wisdom, though they may be buried. Instead of judging them as hopeless, you can choose to see their potential. This shift softens your heart and makes compassion easier. You realize that just as you are learning to uncover your own goodness, others are struggling to uncover theirs. One of the most powerful practices to awaken this inner goodness is reflection. Each day, take time to ask yourself, what goodness did I practice today? Did I show kindness? Did I exercise patience? Did I notice beauty? Did I forgive, even in small ways? This reflection helps you see that goodness is not something rare. It is something you practice daily, often without realizing it. By noticing it, you strengthen it. It is also important to remember that uncovering inner goodness is a lifelong journey. Some days you may feel peaceful and compassionate, while other days you may feel overwhelmed by anger or fear. This is natural. Clouds come and go, but the sun remains. Do not judge yourself harshly when clouds appear. Simply return to the practice of noticing, breathing, and gently clearing the sky. With time, you will find that the clouds pass more quickly and your inner light shines more consistently. The ultimate realization is that the good you seek has never been missing. It is not hidden in the future, nor in someone else's possession, nor in a faraway place. It is here, now, within you. Every breath is an opportunity to touch it. Every act of awareness is a chance to awaken it. Every moment of gratitude, compassion, and presence is proof that goodness is alive in you. When you truly grasp this truth, your relationship with life changes. You no longer live as a beggar, always searching for scraps of happiness from the world. You live as a creator, knowing that peace, joy, and goodness flow from within. The world may bring challenges, but it can no longer take away your inner wealth. And with this wealth, you not only transform your own life, you become a source of light for others, showing them that they too carry the goodness they have been searching for all along. 9. Impermanence teaches you to treasure the good. One of the most profound truths the Buddha taught is the principle of impermanence, anicca. Everything in life, whether joyful or painful, whether beautiful or ugly, whether big or small, is temporary. Nothing stays the same forever. The seasons change, the body ages, relationships evolve, wealth comes and goes, and even the mountains slowly erode over time. To resist this truth is to invite suffering, but to embrace it is to awaken wisdom. At first, impermanence may sound frightening. We do not want to lose what we love. We do not want our health to fade, our relationships to change, or our happiness to slip away. But impermanence is not only about loss, it is also about possibility. Because everything changes, pain does not last forever. Because everything changes, growth is possible. And because everything changes, every moment of goodness is precious beyond measure. Think of a flower blooming in spring. You know it will not last forever. Yet does that make it less beautiful? No, it makes it more beautiful because its fragility calls you to appreciate it fully while it is here. In the same way, when you accept impermanence, you begin to treasure the good in your life instead of taking it for granted. The smile of a loved one, the warmth of the sun, the laughter of a child, all of these become more meaningful when you realize they are fleeting gifts. Impermanence sharpens your appreciation. It teaches you that the good you see today may not be here tomorrow, so you should savor it with all your heart. Impermanence also frees you from despair. When you are suffering, it is easy to believe that the pain will never end. The mind says, "This is forever. I will always feel this way." But impermanence whispers a different truth. This too shall pass. The heartbreak that feels unbearable today will soften with time. The anger that burns inside you will fade if you let it. The darkness of grief, though heavy, will eventually give way to light. By remembering impermanence, you prevent yourself from drowning in temporary storms. Buddhism teaches that impermanence is not a curse but the very fabric of life. Imagine if nothing ever changed, if every situation, good or bad, lasted forever. Growth would be impossible. Learning would be impossible. Even joy, if it never changed, would eventually feel like boredom. It is precisely because life flows and shifts that we are able to evolve. The same river never passes twice, yet its flow nourishes the land. The same is true for our lives. Change is what allows us to move, grow, and discover new dimensions of ourselves. When you resist impermanence, you cling. You hold tightly to people, possessions, and circumstances, hoping to freeze them in place. But clinging only creates suffering because no amount of effort can stop the flow of time. It is like trying to hold water in your fist. The tighter you grip, the faster it slips away. Instead, Buddhism invites us to open our hands, to hold life gently, and to appreciate what we have while it is here. This does not mean detachment in the cold sense of indifference. It means loving fully without illusion, knowing that every moment is a gift, not a guarantee. Impermanence also teaches you to see the good in change. Often when one door closes, another opens. A friendship may end, but it may lead you to people who understand you more deeply. A job may be lost, but the loss may guide you toward your true calling. Even aging, which many fear, can be reframed as the unfolding of wisdom and the deepening of compassion. Impermanence reminds you that nothing is final, not joy, not sorrow, not success, not failure. Everything is in motion, and within that motion lies the possibility of renewal. Consider the sky. Clouds constantly move across it, sometimes light and soft, sometimes dark and stormy, but the sky itself remains vast and unchanged. In Buddhism, the mind is compared to the sky, and thoughts and emotions are like clouds. They come, they go, they shift. If you mistake yourself for the clouds, you suffer every storm, but if you remember that you are the sky, you realize that storms pass and clarity always returns. Impermanence allows you to identify less with temporary states and more with the vast awareness beneath them. In practical terms, embracing impermanence means living more mindfully. Instead of rushing through your day, you pause to notice the details that will not last, the taste of your food, the sound of rain, the presence of loved ones. You stop postponing happiness for some distant future and begin to live fully in the present. You express gratitude more often, say "I love you" more sincerely, and release grudges more quickly because you know time is limited. Impermanence is not an excuse for despair, it is a call to presence. This understanding also changes how you view others. When you see that everyone you meet is passing through their own temporary struggles and joys, compassion naturally arises. The angry person may not always be angry, they are caught in a moment of suffering. The joyful person may not always be joyful, they too will face challenges. By remembering impermanence, you stop freezing people in single moments. You recognize their humanity, their changeability, their potential. This perspective makes forgiveness easier, patience more natural, and relationships more meaningful. Impermanence also prepares you for loss. When you remember that nothing lasts forever, you stop being shocked when change arrives. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen?" you understand that change is the nature of life. This does not erase grief, but it softens it. You mourn without denial, and in time you heal. Accepting impermanence does not mean detaching from love. It means loving more deeply while you have the chance, precisely because you know it will not last forever. Ultimately, impermanence teaches you to see the good everywhere because it awakens you to the preciousness of now. Every sunrise, every breath, every smile becomes sacred when you know it will not come again in the same way. This realization is not meant to make you sad, it is meant to make you alive. Impermanence tells you, do not sleepwalk through life, do not wait until tomorrow to appreciate what you have today. When you align yourself with this truth, life becomes lighter. You no longer cling desperately to the past or anxiously to the future. You ride the flow of change with grace, knowing that both joy and sorrow will pass, and in that flow you find peace. You realize that the good you seek is not a permanent possession, but a living experience that must be savored moment by moment. Impermanence, then, is not your enemy. It is your teacher. It teaches you humility, reminding you that you cannot control everything. It teaches you gratitude, reminding you to cherish the good while it is here. It teaches you resilience, reminding you that pain will not last forever. And most importantly, it teaches you presence, the art of living fully in the only moment you ever truly have, this one. So when you train your mind to see the good, do not look for something that will last forever. Instead, look for the good that is here now, however small, however fleeting. Treasure it, appreciate it, and let it nourish you. For in the truth of impermanence lies the secret to lasting peace, the ability to love deeply, to live fully, and to let go gracefully when the time comes. 10. Peace comes when you stop controlling and start flowing. If there is one thing the human mind struggles with most, it is the need to control. We want life to bend to our expectations. We want people to behave according to our desires. We want circumstances to unfold exactly as we plan. And when they do not, frustration and suffering arise. This constant battle for control is exhausting because the truth is simple: much of life will always be beyond our control. Buddhism reminds us that peace does not come from controlling the waves of existence. It comes from learning how to flow with them. Imagine a person standing in a river, trying to stop the current with their hands. No matter how strong they are, the river keeps flowing. The harder they resist, the more exhausted they become. Now imagine another person stepping into the same river, but instead of resisting, they float, letting the current carry them. They are still moving with the river, but they are no longer at war with it. This is the difference between a mind that clings to control and a mind that flows with life. The desire to control arises from fear, the fear of uncertainty, the fear of loss, the fear of failure. We believe that if we can control everything, we can protect ourselves from suffering. But ironically, the opposite happens. The more we cling, the more we suffer, because life refuses to obey our demands. People change, circumstances shift, and unexpected events arrive no matter how carefully we plan. Control becomes a cage that traps us in constant anxiety. Flow, on the other hand, is freedom. When you stop demanding that life match your script, you open yourself to the beauty of what is actually unfolding. Flowing with life does not mean becoming passive or careless. It does not mean abandoning responsibility or giving up on dreams. It means acting with intention, but releasing attachment to outcomes. You still plant seeds, but you do not try to command when or how they will grow. You still work toward your goals, but you do not collapse when the path twists in unexpected ways. Flow means you do your part, and then trust the larger rhythm of existence. This principle can be seen in nature. A tree does not resist the seasons. In spring it blossoms. In summer it bears fruit. In autumn it lets its leaves fall. In winter it rests. At no point does the tree scream, "I refuse to lose my leaves," or "I demand that summer never end." The tree flows with the natural order, and in doing so, it thrives. Human beings, however, often resist the seasons of their own lives. We cling to youth, resist aging, fear change, and fight against endings. But if we learn from the tree, we can begin to embrace each season as part of the flow. Control is also tied to the ego, the false belief that we are separate from the rest of existence, standing above it, dictating how it should move. But Buddhism teaches interdependence. Nothing exists alone. Just as the ocean's waves rise and fall according to countless conditions, wind, moon, gravity, so too does your life flow according to countless causes. To demand that everything obey your will is to deny this truth. Flowing, however, means recognizing your place in the vast web of existence. You are not the master of the ocean, but you are not helpless either. You are a wave in the ocean, unique but inseparable from the whole. When you stop controlling and start flowing, peace arises because you are no longer fighting reality. Think of how much energy is wasted trying to change things you cannot change. You cannot control what others think of you. You cannot control the passage of time. You cannot control every twist of fate, but you can control how you respond. You can control whether you meet change with resistance or with acceptance. Flowing is not weakness, it is the strength of wisdom. This teaching becomes especially powerful in relationships. So much suffering comes from trying to control people, demanding that they love you in a certain way, behave according to your wishes, or never change. But people are like rivers, always moving. If you try to trap them, you both suffer. If you allow them to flow, you create space for real love. Love based on freedom, not possession. Flowing in relationships means appreciating people as they are, not as you want them to be. It means walking alongside them rather than chaining them to your expectations. The art of flowing also applies to your inner world. Thoughts, emotions, and moods are constantly changing. When anger arises, many people cling to it, feeding it with stories until it becomes a fire. When sadness arises, they resist it, pushing it away, which only makes it stronger. Flowing means allowing emotions to come and go without clinging or resisting. You let anger arise, observe it, and let it pass. You let sadness visit, acknowledge it, and let it fade. In doing so, you realize that emotions, like clouds, are temporary. They are not who you are. They are just passing weather in the sky of your mind. One of the most practical ways to train in flowing is through mindfulness. When something does not go your way, pause. Instead of immediately resisting, breathe and ask yourself, what is life teaching me here? How can I move with this instead of against it? Often you will discover that what seemed like an obstacle is actually redirecting you toward a better path. Flowing allows you to see possibilities that control would have blinded you to. Flow also cultivates trust, not blind trust in luck, but trust in the unfolding of causes and conditions. When you look back at your life, you can often see that many of the things you once resisted turned out to be blessings in disguise. The rejection that felt like disaster opened the door to a new opportunity. The failure that crushed you taught you resilience. The loss that broke your heart deepened your compassion. Flowing means remembering this truth even in the moment of difficulty. It means trusting that life in its wisdom often gives you not what you want, but what you need to grow. This practice of flowing changes your entire relationship with the future. Instead of living in constant fear of what might happen, you live with openness. You still plan, but you do not cling to the plan. You still dream, but you are not shattered if the dream changes shape. You realize that the future is not meant to be controlled, it is meant to be met with presence and adaptability. And when the future arrives, you will be ready, not because you forced it, but because you flowed with it. Ultimately, flowing is not about giving up, it is about letting go. It is about surrendering the illusion that you are the master of everything, and instead embracing the truth that you are part of something vast and interconnected. This surrender is not defeat, it is liberation. It frees you from the exhausting burden of control and allows you to live with ease, flexibility, and peace. So the next time you feel life slipping out of your control, remember the river. Remember that you can choose to fight and exhaust yourself, or you can choose to float and discover freedom. You can choose to be rigid and break, or you can choose to flow and endure. The choice is always yours. When you stop controlling and start flowing, life does not suddenly become free of challenges, but it does become free of unnecessary suffering. Peace arises, not because the world has changed, but because your relationship to the world has changed. And in that peace, you discover the deepest truth of all. The good you were seeking has been here all along, waiting in the flow of life itself. 11. Stillness reveals the good hidden beneath the noise. In today's world, the human mind is constantly bombarded with noise. There is the outer noise of traffic, technology, news, endless notifications, and conversations that often lack depth. And then there is the inner noise, the chatter of thoughts, the replaying of regrets, the worrying about the future, the comparing, the judging, the never-ending commentary that fills our heads from morning until night. Surrounded by so much noise, it becomes nearly impossible to notice the quiet goodness that exists both within and around us. Buddhism teaches that if you want to see clearly, you must first become still. Stillness is not the absence of life, it is the discovery of life's deepest truth. Imagine a pond filled with muddy water. If you keep stirring the water, it remains cloudy and you cannot see the bottom. But if you let the water rest, the mud slowly settles and the water becomes clear. In the same way, when your mind is restless, filled with noise and constant stimulation, you cannot see the good that is right in front of you. But when you practice stillness through meditation, mindfulness, or simple pauses, the mud of distraction settles. Suddenly, clarity arises. You see the beauty of the present moment, the small blessings you had overlooked, and the calm strength already within you. Stillness is powerful because it changes your relationship with reality. Most people run through life reacting. Someone says something unkind, and they immediately respond with anger. Something doesn't go as planned, and they react with frustration. Their mind is like a leaf blown around by the wind, never stable, never steady. But when you cultivate stillness, you create a pause between stimulus and response. In that pause lies your freedom. Instead of being dragged by impulses, you can choose your response with wisdom, and often the wise response is to see the good that is hidden beneath the surface. Take, for example, a moment of failure. Without stillness, your mind immediately reacts with self-criticism. I'm not good enough. I'll never succeed. But with stillness, you pause and observe. You see that failure is not the end, but feedback, a teacher pointing you toward growth. You notice the effort you gave, the lessons learned, and the resilience being built. What first seemed purely negative is reframed into something useful, all because you gave yourself space to see clearly. Stillness also reveals the goodness in others. When you are restless, you judge quickly. This person is rude, that person is selfish. But when you become still, you look deeper. You realize that behind someone's anger is pain, behind someone's coldness is fear, behind someone's arrogance is insecurity. Stillness allows you to look beyond appearances and to see the human heart beneath. And when you see that heart, compassion naturally arises. You stop focusing on flaws and start noticing the goodness people carry, even if it is hidden under layers of struggle. On a practical level, stillness can be cultivated in many ways. Meditation is the most well-known practice, but stillness can also be found in simple acts, sitting silently with a cup of tea, walking slowly without distraction, breathing deeply before speaking, or simply pausing in gratitude before a meal. These moments of stillness act as anchors in the storm of daily life. They remind you to return to yourself, to notice what is here now, and to open your eyes to the good around you. Another dimension of stillness is learning to quiet the inner critic. For many people, the loudest noise is not outside but inside, the harsh voice that constantly says, "You're not enough, you're failing, you should be more like others." This voice drowns out the quiet truth that you are already worthy, already carrying goodness. Stillness teaches you to step back from that voice. You begin to observe it instead of obeying it. You realize that the inner critic is just another cloud passing across the sky of the mind, not the sky itself. And once you stop giving it power, the goodness within you has space to shine. Stillness also deepens your appreciation for impermanence. When you rush through life, everything blurs. You barely notice the sunrise, the smile of a loved one, the taste of your food, the feeling of air in your lungs. But when you pause in stillness, you realize how fleeting and precious these moments are. A sunrise will never come again in the same way. A conversation with a loved one may be the last of its kind. Even your own breath is a miracle you often overlook. Stillness helps you treasure the good while it is here, instead of realizing its value only after it is gone. Perhaps one of the most transformative gifts of stillness is that it connects you to your deeper self, the part of you that is beyond fear, beyond desire, beyond the constant chasing of the world. In stillness, you realize that your worth is not tied to achievements, possessions, or recognition. You begin to feel a sense of wholeness that is independent of circumstances. And from that wholeness, you naturally see more good in life because you are no longer desperate to fill an inner emptiness. The practice of stillness also builds resilience against suffering. Life will always bring storms, loss, illness, disappointment, change. A restless mind is easily shaken by these storms, but a still mind, like a deep-rooted tree, bends without breaking. When difficulties come, stillness allows you to face them with clarity and calm. You may still feel pain, but you are not consumed by it. You can hold both the difficulty and the goodness together, seeing that even in suffering, there are moments of beauty and grace. In Buddhism, monks often sit for hours in silence, not to escape the world, but to understand it more deeply. They know that in silence and stillness, the truths of life reveal themselves. For the average person, hours of meditation may not be realistic, but even a few minutes of stillness each day can transform the way you live. The key is consistency. Just as water shapes rock not by force but by persistence, stillness shapes the mind through gentle daily practice. Stillness also has a ripple effect. When you cultivate it, others feel it. A calm presence can soothe a restless room. A gentle response can dissolve an argument. A peaceful heart can inspire others to slow down and look within. By practicing stillness, you not only benefit yourself, You spread goodness into your community, your family, and your relationships. You become a reminder to others that peace is possible, even in a noisy world. Ultimately, stillness is not the end goal, it is the doorway. It is the doorway to gratitude, compassion, clarity, and joy. It is the space in which you discover that the good you seek has been here all along, waiting patiently beneath the noise. And once you have touched that stillness, you carry it with you into the chaos of daily life. You no longer need perfect conditions to feel peace. You can be surrounded by noise, yet remain calm inside. You can face challenges, yet remain steady. You can see flaws, yet remain focused on the good. The practice is simple, though not always easy. Pause, breathe, and be still. Do this often and you will notice that life becomes clearer, lighter, and more beautiful. The good was never missing, it was only hidden. Stillness reveals it, and once revealed, it cannot be unseen. 12. Contentment is the key that unlocks the good in life. One of the greatest paradoxes of human existence is that although we have more comforts, opportunities, and freedoms today than at almost any other time in history, many people are still deeply unhappy. Why? Because no matter what they achieve, it never feels like enough. The mind keeps whispering, "I need more, I need better, I need different." This endless craving blinds us to the goodness that is already present. Buddhism teaches that true peace is not found in the endless chase for more. It is found in contentment. Contentment is not laziness, nor is it resignation. It does not mean giving up on growth or settling for less than you deserve. Contentment means being at peace with what you have in this moment, even as you continue to walk your path of improvement. It is the ability to appreciate today while working toward tomorrow. Without contentment, even the greatest achievements feel hollow. With contentment, even the simplest life feels abundant. Think of a thirsty man standing by a flowing river. If he keeps saying, "This river is not big enough, I want a lake," he will die of thirst while complaining. But if he bends down and drinks, he will be satisfied. The river may not be infinite, but it is enough to quench his thirst. Life is the same. There is always more to chase, always more to want. But if you pause and drink from what is already before you, the relationships you have, the opportunities available, the health you carry, you will discover that it is enough. Buddhism describes craving as one of the main causes of suffering. Craving creates restlessness. You buy something new and the joy fades after a few days. You achieve a goal and immediately you set another, never truly resting in satisfaction. This cycle is endless because the mind has been conditioned to believe happiness lies in the next thing, never in the present. Contentment breaks this cycle. It says, "Yes, I may still have goals, but I will not sacrifice today's peace for tomorrow's promise. I will be grateful for what is here now." Contentment opens your eyes to the good you already overlook: the roof above your head, the food on your plate, the people who care about you, the air in your lungs. All of these are blessings that millions do not have. Yet because the mind is focused on what is missing, we fail to appreciate them. Contentment is the shift from lack to abundance. It does not add more to your life, but it makes what you already have shine more brightly. This does not mean contentment is passive. A content person can still work hard, chase dreams, and achieve greatness. The difference is that they do not tie their happiness to the outcome. They enjoy the journey because they are not slaves to the destination. Imagine two people climbing a mountain. One is obsessed with reaching the peak and feels miserable the entire climb because it is hard. The other enjoys the view, the fresh air, the exercise, and the company along the way. Both may reach the top, but only one truly lived the experience. That is the difference contentment makes. Contentment also protects you from the trap of comparison. When you are content, you stop measuring your life against others. You no longer care if someone has more money, more recognition, or more success, because you understand that true wealth is inner peace. Contentment teaches you that the size of your house or the brand of your clothes does not determine your worth. Your worth is measured by your ability to live with gratitude, compassion, and presence. Another gift of contentment is resilience. When difficulties come, a discontent mind collapses, constantly complaining, constantly asking, "Why me?" but a content mind, grounded in gratitude, can endure hardship with strength. It says, "Even in this storm there is still something good. Even in this pain there is still something to learn." This perspective does not erase suffering, but it makes it bearable. It turns obstacles into teachers and losses into opportunities for deeper wisdom. Buddhism also reminds us that contentment is a choice. It is not something you wait for life to give you. It is something you cultivate daily. You can practice contentment in small ways by pausing to enjoy a simple meal, by appreciating the roof over your head, by noticing the beauty of nature on your way to work, by being grateful for the people who stand by you. Each act of appreciation strengthens the muscle of contentment until it becomes a natural state of mind. Contentment also transforms relationships. When you are discontent, you expect others to fill your emptiness. You demand that they behave in ways that satisfy your desires. This creates tension because no one can meet your expectations all the time. But when you are content within yourself, you stop burdening others with the responsibility for your happiness. You can love them freely without conditions. This makes relationships lighter, more genuine, and more joyful. Another dimension of contentment is self-acceptance. Many people are harsh with themselves, always wishing they were smarter, stronger, or more attractive. This self-criticism blinds them to their own goodness. Contentment means accepting yourself as you are, while still working to grow. It means seeing your flaws with compassion instead of hatred, and your strengths with gratitude instead of pride. When you are content with yourself, you radiate peace, and others feel safer and happier around you. One of the most beautiful aspects of contentment is that it liberates you from greed. Greed says more, more, more. Contentment says, this is enough. A greedy mind is never satisfied, no matter how much it gets, but a content mind is rich even with little. This is why the Buddha taught that contentment is the greatest wealth. It cannot be stolen, it does not depend on external possessions, and it brings peace in every circumstance. Contentment also deepens your spiritual practice. When you are content, meditation becomes easier because your mind is not constantly restless, chasing after desires. When you are content, compassion becomes easier because you are not consumed by envy or insecurity. When you are content, gratitude flows naturally because you are always aware of how much you already have. In this way, contentment is the soil in which all other virtues grow. Practical ways to cultivate contentment include reflecting daily on blessings, simplifying your life, and practicing generosity. Generosity is powerful because it breaks the illusion of lack. When you give, you remind yourself that you already have enough. Generosity also creates joy because sharing your blessings allows you to experience abundance in action. Another practice is mindfulness, simply being present with what is, without wishing it were different. Mindfulness teaches you to say, this moment is enough. Ultimately, contentment does not mean you stop dreaming. It means you stop postponing happiness until your dreams come true. You learn to live fully now, even as you move toward the future. You realize that every day holds goodness if you choose to see it. Contentment unlocks this goodness by shifting your focus from lack to abundance, from craving to gratitude, from comparison to appreciation. In the end, contentment is the key that unlocks the good in life. Without it, you can chase endlessly and never feel satisfied. With it, you can live simply and still feel rich. Contentment teaches you that peace is not found in what you achieve tomorrow, but in how you live today. And when you carry this truth in your heart, life itself becomes lighter, brighter, and more beautiful because you finally see the good that was always there. 13. Patience opens the door to hidden goodness. If there is one quality that modern life discourages more than anything else, it is patience. Everything around us pushes speed, instant food, instant communication, instant results. We are taught that if something takes too long, it is broken or outdated. The result is that people become restless and frustrated the moment life does not move according to their timeline. Yet Buddhism teaches that impatience blinds the mind and heart. The good is often hidden in the slow unfolding of life, and only patience has the power to reveal it. Patience is not simply waiting. Anyone can wait while complaining, fidgeting, and wishing time would move faster. Patience is waiting with calmness, with acceptance, and with trust. It is the ability to be present in the process, instead of being obsessed only with the result. Without patience, even small inconveniences turn into suffering. With patience, even long struggles become bearable and meaningful. Think of a seed planted in the soil. You cannot rush its growth. If you dig it up every day to check its progress, you will kill it. If you water it consistently and allow time to do its work, eventually it will break through the earth and grow into a plant. Life is the same. The goodness you are seeking often grows slowly, in ways you cannot see. Impatience is like digging up the seed. It destroys the process. Patience is like steady watering. It allows the hidden goodness to appear in its own time. When you train your mind to see the good, patience becomes essential, because not all good is immediate. Some good is visible right away. A smile, a kind word, a small blessing. But deeper good often takes time to emerge. Pain may not reveal its lesson until months later. Failure may not show its value until it redirects you to a better path. A dream may not bear fruit until years of effort and resilience. Impatience makes you abandon the path before the good is revealed. Patience keeps you walking until the gift is clear. Impatience is often rooted in craving. The mind says, "I want this now, I will only be happy when it arrives." This creates suffering because the present moment is rejected as inadequate. Patience transforms craving into acceptance. It says, "I may not have everything I want right now, but I can still find peace here. I can trust that what is meant for me will come in its own time." This shift immediately lightens the heart. Instead of fighting with time, you flow with it. Patience also protects relationships. Many conflicts arise not because people truly dislike each other, but because they are impatient with one another's growth, mistakes, or differences. A parent loses patience with a child learning slowly. A partner loses patience with a loved one's flaws. A worker loses patience with a colleague's pace. But when you practice patience, you begin to see the good beneath the imperfection. You realize that growth takes time, that mistakes are part of learning, and that every person, including yourself, deserves space to evolve. This understanding softens anger and strengthens compassion. On a personal level, patience teaches you to see goodness in your own journey. Too often, we are harsh with ourselves, demanding immediate change. "I should already be successful. I should already be healed. I should already be wise." This impatience blinds us to the progress we have already made. But if you step back with patience, you begin to see that growth is happening, even if slowly. Every small effort, every meditation, every act of kindness, every moment of awareness is watering the seeds of goodness. You may not notice the change day by day, but over time transformation becomes clear. Buddhism often speaks of patience as a form of strength, not weakness. An impatient person reacts quickly, often with anger or despair. A patient person holds steady, like a mountain enduring storms. They do not collapse when results are delayed or when others test their limits. This steadiness is true strength. Anyone can shout in frustration, but it takes great power to remain calm, to breathe, and to wait without resentment. Practical ways to cultivate patience include mindfulness and reframing. When you feel impatience rising, perhaps in traffic, in a long line, or during a personal challenge, pause and breathe. Instead of thinking, "This is wasting my time," reframe it as, "This is a chance to practice calmness. This is an opportunity to notice what is around me." In this way, impatience becomes a teacher, reminding you to slow down and return to the present. Another practice is to remind yourself of impermanence. Whatever delay or difficulty you face will not last forever. The line will eventually move, the pain will eventually fade, the challenge will eventually pass. Remembering impermanence helps you release the demand for instant change and trust that time itself is part of the process. Patience also connects deeply with faith, not blind faith in luck, but faith in the unfolding of life. Think of all the times in your past when what you thought was a delay turned out to be perfect timing. Perhaps a job you didn't get led you to a better opportunity. Perhaps a relationship that didn't work out saved you from greater heartbreak. At the time, you felt frustrated, but looking back, you see the hidden good. Patience is the decision to trust this truth, even in the moment of waiting. On a deeper level, patience is the recognition that life cannot be controlled. The river flows at its own pace, and no amount of shouting will make it flow faster. You can either exhaust yourself fighting against time, or learn to float and trust its rhythm. In floating, you discover peace. When you live with patience, life becomes less about rushing and more about savoring. You begin to enjoy the journey instead of obsessing over the destination. You notice the small joys along the way, instead of postponing happiness until some imagined future. You begin to see that goodness is not only at the finish line, it is scattered throughout the path, waiting for you to notice. Patience also frees you from bitterness. Without patience, delays and disappointments harden the heart. You feel cheated, angry, or hopeless, but patience softens you. It reminds you that goodness can still emerge, even from what feels like a setback. It teaches you to hold suffering with gentleness, knowing that it too has a role in your growth. Ultimately, patience is not just about waiting, it is about how you wait. You can wait with frustration, or you can wait with peace. You can wait while complaining, or you can wait while noticing the blessings already present. The choice is always yours. But if you choose patience, you will find that life becomes lighter. The storms still come, but you no longer drown in them. You float, trusting that calm waters will return. Patience opens the door to hidden goodness because it allows time for seeds to grow, for wounds to heal, for lessons to reveal themselves. Without patience, you rush past these gifts. With patience, you discover that life is not withholding goodness, it is simply asking you to wait long enough to see it. So train your mind to be patient. When delays come, breathe. When results take time, trust. When people move slowly, be compassionate. When your own growth feels slow, be gentle with yourself. In doing so, you will find that patience is not empty, it is full of wisdom, full of strength, full of quiet goodness waiting to bloom. Acceptance transforms struggle into peace. If there is one force that silently fuels much of human suffering, it is resistance. We resist reality. We resist change. We resist pain, imperfection, and loss. This resistance takes many forms: denial, anger, constant complaining, or the endless effort to control what cannot be controlled. The result is a life lived in conflict, not only with circumstances, but with ourselves. Buddhism teaches that acceptance is the antidote. Acceptance does not mean giving up, and it does not mean agreeing with everything that happens. Acceptance means seeing reality as it is, without distortion, and choosing to respond with clarity instead of struggle. At first, the idea of acceptance can sound passive, even weak. Many people believe that if they accept something, it means they approve of it or surrender to hopelessness. But true acceptance is strength. It requires courage to look directly at life as it is, instead of escaping into illusions. It requires wisdom to let go of the endless fight against what already exists. Acceptance is not the same as passivity. It is the foundation for wise action. You cannot change what you refuse to acknowledge. You cannot heal what you will not face. Only by accepting the truth of the present can you take steps to transform the future. Think of a person caught in the rain without an umbrella. If they resist, they shout at the sky, curse the weather, and run angrily through the storm. They are wet and miserable. But another person, in the same storm, may simply accept. It is raining. They cannot stop the rain. They walk calmly, maybe even enjoy the coolness of the drops, and find shelter when possible. Both get wet, but only one suffers unnecessarily. Acceptance does not remove the rain, but it removes the extra suffering created by resistance. In daily life, resistance often shows up as the thought, "This should not be happening," a delay, a rejection, an illness, a loss. When these arrive, the mind screams, "It's unfair, it's wrong, it should be different." But the reality is that it is happening. No amount of denial can erase that. When you resist, you add layers of suffering, anger, bitterness, despair. When you accept, you face reality directly. You can still feel sadness, but it is clean sadness, not tangled with rage. You can still take action, but it comes from clarity, not panic. Acceptance is not resignation. Resignation says, "There is nothing I can do, so I give up." Acceptance says, "This is what is true right now. I will work with it wisely." For example, if you lose a job, resignation says, "I'm doomed, life is over." Acceptance says, "Yes, I lost this job, it hurts, but now I can look for new opportunities." If you face illness, resignation says, "I will suffer forever." Acceptance says, "This illness is here. I will care for myself, follow treatment, and still live meaningfully." Do you see the difference? Resignation drains energy, while acceptance frees energy. One of the most powerful gifts of acceptance is peace. The moment you stop fighting with reality, a deep calm arises. It is as if you have been carrying a heavy burden of resistance, and suddenly you set it down. Life may still be difficult, but you are no longer making it harder within a conflict. This peace allows you to see the good that was invisible before. When your energy is no longer wasted on resistance, you can notice the support of friends, the lessons hidden in hardship, the strength you never knew you had. Acceptance also transforms relationships. So much conflict in families, friendships, and partnerships comes from the refusal to accept others as they are. We want them to change, to fit our expectations, to act the way we believe they should. But people are not clay to be molded. They are rivers flowing in their own direction. When you stop resisting who they are and begin accepting them as human beings with flaws and strengths, your heart softens. You may still set boundaries or choose distance when necessary, but your actions come from understanding, not resentment. This shift heals many wounds and allows love to flow more freely. On a personal level, acceptance also means embracing yourself. Many people live in constant resistance to who they are. They hate their flaws, deny their feelings, and punish themselves for their mistakes. This inner battle creates endless suffering. Acceptance does not mean you stop growing. It means you stop hating yourself as you grow. It means saying, "Yes, I am imperfect. Yes, I make mistakes, but I am still worthy of love, and I can still improve step by step." Self-acceptance turns the harsh voice of the inner critic into the gentle voice of a guide. Another way acceptance creates goodness is by reconnecting you with impermanence. When you accept that everything changes, you stop clinging to what must pass and stop fearing what must come. You realize that joy, when it comes, should be savored because it will not last forever. You realize that pain, when it comes, should be held with patience because it too will not last forever. Acceptance of impermanence opens the heart to gratitude for the present and hope for the future. Buddhist teachings often describe suffering as a second arrow. The first arrow is the inevitable pain of life, illness, loss, change. The second arrow is the suffering we add by resisting: anger, denial, blame, self-pity. We cannot always avoid the first arrow, but we can avoid the second. Acceptance is the shield that prevents the second arrow from wounding us. For example, grief is natural when a loved one dies. That is the first arrow. But if you resist by saying, "This should not have happened, life is cruel, I cannot bear it," you pierce yourself with a second arrow. Acceptance allows you to grieve without self-torture, to honor your love without drowning in endless resentment. Practical mindfulness helps cultivate acceptance. When something unpleasant arises, instead of immediately saying no, pause and observe. Notice your breath, your body, your thoughts. Say to yourself, "This is what is happening right now. I may not like it, but it is here." This simple acknowledgement is acceptance. From here, you can respond with wisdom instead of blind resistance. Acceptance also teaches you to see the hidden good even in struggle. The difficult boss may teach you patience. A health scare may teach you to value your body. A breakup may teach you self-respect. These lessons are invisible when you resist, because all you see is unfairness. But acceptance opens your eyes. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What can this teach me?" That shift alone turns suffering into growth. Acceptance does not mean you stop working for change. In fact, it makes change more effective. Imagine a doctor who refuses to accept that a patient is ill. How can they treat the illness if they deny it exists? But if they accept the diagnosis, they can begin treatment. In the same way, Acceptance allows you to see reality clearly and then take wise action. Without acceptance, action is blind. With acceptance, action is purposeful. Another gift of acceptance is humility. It reminds you that you are not the master of the universe. You cannot control every outcome, and that is okay. Acceptance humbles the ego and teaches you to flow with life instead of demanding that life flow with you. This humility does not weaken you, it frees you from the exhausting burden of control. Acceptance also deepens gratitude. When you stop resisting what you don't like, you start appreciating what is good. The small blessings you overlooked, health, friendship, shelter, laughter, become more visible. Acceptance creates space for gratitude to flourish. And gratitude, in turn, makes acceptance easier. Together, they form a cycle of peace. Over time, the practice of acceptance reshapes your entire mind. You become less reactive, less fearful, less bitter. You stop wasting energy on what cannot be changed and invest it in what can. You discover that peace was never dependent on perfect conditions. It was dependent on your relationship with reality. And when that relationship shifts from resistance to acceptance, life itself feels lighter, more spacious, and more kind. So train yourself to practice acceptance. Accept the weather. Accept delays. Accept other people's imperfections. Accept your own humanity. Accept change. Accept uncertainty. This does not mean you never act. It means you act from wisdom instead of struggle. And as you do, you will notice something extraordinary. Much of the suffering you carried was never from life itself, it was from the refusal to accept life as it is. Acceptance transforms struggle into peace because it dissolves the inner war. Life may still bring storms, but you no longer fight against the rain. You walk with it, sometimes even dance with it, knowing that every drop is part of the greater flow. In that surrender, you do not lose control, you gain freedom. You do not become weaker, you become unshakable, and you finally see that the good you were searching for was always here, waiting beneath the noise of resistance. 15. Letting go creates space for the good to enter. The human heart has a natural tendency to hold on. We hold on to possessions, even when we no longer need them. We hold on to relationships, even when they have become toxic. We hold on to memories, even when they bring us pain. And most of all, we hold on to stories about who we are and how life should be. This clinging is deeply human, but it is also the root of much suffering. Buddhism teaches that freedom and peace are found not in clinging, but in letting go. Letting go does not mean losing everything. It means creating space for something new, something lighter, something good to enter your life. Imagine carrying a backpack filled with heavy stones. Each stone represents something you are holding on to: regret, anger, fear, attachment, pride. The weight slows you down, drains your energy, and makes the journey of life exhausting. Letting go is like removing the stones one by one. At first, it feels frightening. You wonder if you can live without them, but with every stone you release, you feel lighter, freer, and more able to walk with ease. Eventually, you realize the stones were never protecting you, they were only weighing you down. Letting go is not abandonment or recklessness. It does not mean ignoring responsibilities or cutting ties carelessly. True letting go is an act of wisdom. It is the understanding that clinging to what is impermanent, painful, or beyond your control will only deepen your suffering. Letting go is choosing peace over possession, freedom over attachment, clarity over illusion. One of the hardest things to let go of is the past. Many people replay old wounds over and over, keeping their pain alive long after the event has passed. They hold on to betrayal, injustice, or mistakes, believing that remembering will somehow protect them. But in reality, holding on only keeps the wound open. The past cannot be changed, but the present can be destroyed by your refusal to release it. Letting go of the past does not mean forgetting, it means choosing not to let yesterday's pain define today's peace. Another heavy burden is resentment. When someone wrongs us, we often carry anger for years, sometimes decades. We think holding on to that anger punishes the other person, but in truth, it poisons us. It eats away at our joy, colors our perception, and blocks us from seeing the good around us. Forgiveness is the act of letting go of resentment. It does not mean condoning the harm or allowing it to continue. It means freeing yourself from the prison of anger. Forgiveness creates space for compassion, healing, and new beginnings. We also cling to control. We want to dictate how life unfolds, how others behave, how the future looks. But life is vast and unpredictable. No matter how tightly we grip, we cannot control the flow of time, the choices of others, or the twists of fate. Clinging to control creates endless anxiety. Letting go of control means trusting the larger flow of life. It means doing your best and then surrendering the outcome. This surrender is not defeat, it is freedom. It frees you from the exhausting burden of trying to control the uncontrollable. Another form of clinging is attachment to identity. We create fixed stories about who we are. I am successful. I am a failure. I am strong. I am weak. I am this kind of person, not that kind. These stories may give us temporary security, but they also trap us. They limit our growth and blind us to new possibilities. Letting go of rigid identity allows you to evolve. You realize you are not a single story. You are a living process, always changing, always capable of transformation. Even desires can become chains when clung to too tightly. Desire itself is not wrong. It motivates growth, creativity, and effort. But when desire becomes obsession, it blinds you to the good already present. You cannot enjoy what you have because you are always chasing what you lack. Letting go of obsessive desire does not mean abandoning dreams. It means pursuing them with balance. It means appreciating the present while working toward the future. Buddhism often compares letting go to opening your hand. When your fist is clenched, nothing new can enter. When your hand is open, it can both release and receive. Life is the same. When you cling tightly to what no longer serves you, you block the flow of new goodness. When you let go, you create space for new blessings to arrive, relationships, opportunities, insights, peace. Practical ways to practice letting go include mindfulness and reflection. When you notice yourself clinging to a thought, emotion, or situation, pause and ask, is this serving me? Is holding on helping me, or is it keeping me stuck? Often you will realize the weight is unnecessary. Another practice is meditation, where you observe thoughts and let them pass without chasing them. This trains the mind to release instead of cling. Letting go also requires trust. Trust that life will bring new goodness when you make space for it. It is like cleaning out a cluttered room. At first, the emptiness feels strange, even uncomfortable, but soon you realize the space is refreshing, and it allows you to create something new. In the same way, letting go of what no longer serves you opens the door for unexpected gifts. Letting go can also be seen in nature. Trees let go of their leaves in autumn, not in despair, but in trust that new leaves will come in spring. Rivers let go of water constantly, yet they are never empty, they are always renewed. The sky lets go of clouds, and in doing so reveals its vast clarity. Nature flows by letting go. When you live in harmony with this rhythm, you too discover peace. Another dimension of letting go is the recognition of impermanence. Everything you cling to will eventually change. Health will fade, possessions will decay, relationships will transform, even your own body will return to the earth. Clinging cannot stop this truth. It only creates suffering. Letting go means accepting impermanence with grace. It means loving deeply while you can, but not demanding that love remain unchanged forever. It means cherishing every blessing while it lasts, but not collapsing when it passes. Letting go also transforms how you see suffering. Often suffering is prolonged because we refuse to release it. We replay the story, we cling to the pain, we identify with the wound. But suffering, like all things, is impermanent. If you let it flow, it passes. If you cling to it, it stays. Letting go allows you to move forward, to grow, to see the light beyond the darkness. Ultimately, letting go is an act of love for yourself and for life. It frees you from burdens that no longer belong to you. It opens your heart to new possibilities. It allows you to see goodness that was hidden beneath layers of clinging. And in that freedom, you realize that the good you were chasing was always waiting, just beyond the weight you refused to release. So ask yourself, what are you holding on to that is keeping you from peace? Is it anger? Is it regret? Is it the illusion of control? Is it a story about yourself that no longer fits? Whatever it is, know that you have the power to let it go. You may not be able to release it all at once, but you can loosen your grip, little by little, until freedom comes. Letting go creates space for the good to enter, because goodness often needs room to bloom. A clenched heart cannot receive joy. A cluttered mind cannot notice peace. A life filled with unnecessary burdens cannot welcome new blessings. But an open heart, an open mind, an open hand, these create space for beauty, gratitude, love, and wisdom to flow in. Letting go is not loss, it is liberation. And in liberation, you discover that life was always offering you goodness. You only needed the courage to release what was weighing you down. 16. Gratitude in every circumstance reveals life's hidden good. There is a quiet power in gratitude that most people underestimate. When life feels smooth, it is easy to say thank you for health, comfort, or success. But when life is difficult, gratitude becomes harder, and yet it is at those times that it carries the greatest power. Buddhism teaches that gratitude is not merely an emotion to be felt when things are pleasant. It is a practice, a way of perceiving the world, a discipline of the heart. To train your mind to see the good in everything, you must learn to practice gratitude in every circumstance, not just in moments of ease. Gratitude is not denial. It does not mean pretending that pain does not exist, or that injustice is acceptable, or that loss is pleasant. Gratitude does not erase sorrow. It balances it. It means that even when life is heavy, you still search for the light. Even when you face loss, you still notice what remains. Even when you walk through difficulty, you still acknowledge the lessons, the strength, and the hidden kindness that accompany the pain. Think of the sky. When clouds cover it, the sun is still shining above them. Gratitude is the ability to remember the sun even when you cannot see it. It is the refusal to let temporary storms convince you that light no longer exists. Gratitude is not blindness. It is a deeper vision that sees beyond the surface, that notices goodness even when it is quiet, small, or hidden. Most people wait for something big before they feel grateful. They wait for success, wealth, recognition, or major blessings. But gratitude is not about waiting for grand events. It is about noticing the small miracles of ordinary life. Your breath, which keeps you alive without effort. The food on your table, which reached you through countless hands and unseen labor. The body that carries you, imperfect yet loyal. The simple kindness of a stranger, the sound of birds, the sight of the sky. When you train your mind to see these small gifts, life becomes full of goodness, even without dramatic change. Buddhism emphasizes mindfulness as a foundation for gratitude. Without mindfulness, you rush through life, blind to blessings. With mindfulness, you slow down, notice, and appreciate. For example, when you drink a glass of water mindfully, you taste it fully, you feel its coolness, and you remember that without water, life would not exist. Suddenly, something ordinary becomes extraordinary. Gratitude arises naturally when you truly see. One of the deepest forms of gratitude is found in difficulty. This does not mean celebrating pain, but recognizing that even in hardship there are gifts. A difficult situation may teach resilience. A painful loss may deepen compassion. A rejection may redirect you toward a better path. Gratitude in difficulty means asking, what can I learn here? What strength is growing in me? What hidden good might this experience carry? This perspective does not erase suffering, but it prevents suffering from being meaningless. Gratitude also dissolves envy. When you constantly compare yourself to others, you focus only on what you lack. Gratitude shifts the focus to what you already have. You realize that even if someone else has more, your life is still full of blessings. Gratitude makes the heart spacious. Instead of shrinking in bitterness, it expands in appreciation. This expansion allows you to rejoice in others' happiness as well as your own. In relationships, gratitude is transformative. Many relationships suffer because people focus only on flaws, mistakes, and disappointments. But when you choose to notice the good in others, to appreciate even small gestures, love grows. Saying thank you for the daily kindness of a partner, parent, friend, or colleague may seem small, but it nourishes connection. Gratitude makes relationships lighter, warmer, and more joyful. Without it, even great love can wither under constant criticism. Gratitude is also essential for self-acceptance. Many people spend their lives criticizing themselves, always seeing what they lack or where they fall short. Gratitude turns the gaze inward with kindness. It allows you to say, "Thank you, body, for carrying me. Thank you, mind, for learning and growing. Thank you, heart, for loving, even when it was hurt." This self-gratitude is not arrogance, it is compassion. It builds inner strength and heals the wounds of self-criticism. One practical way to cultivate gratitude is through journaling. Each day, write down 3 things you are grateful for. They do not need to be dramatic. Sometimes the smallest things carry the deepest meaning. Over time, this practice rewires the mind. You begin to automatically look for the good in every situation because you have trained your attention to notice blessings. Another practice is pausing before meals to silently thank everyone and everything that made the food possible: the farmers, the rain, the earth, the cook. This mindfulness turns eating into a spiritual act of gratitude. Buddhism often connects gratitude with interdependence. When you reflect deeply, you see that nothing you have is purely your own doing. Your breath is possible because of trees. Your food is possible because of countless people and natural forces. Your knowledge is possible because of teachers and ancestors. Gratitude arises when you realize that your life is supported by an infinite web of connections. You are never alone, and you are never self-sufficient. This realization not only awakens gratitude, but also deepens compassion for others. Another dimension of gratitude is its ability to heal suffering. When you are overwhelmed by negativity, gratitude acts like medicine. It does not eliminate the illness of pain, but it strengthens the immune system of the mind. For example, during grief, gratitude allows you to honor the love you experienced instead of only focusing on the loss. During failure, gratitude allows you to notice the lessons instead of only the shame. During illness, gratitude allows you to appreciate the moments of strength, the care of others, and the simple miracle of life itself. Gratitude does not erase pain, but it makes space for joy to coexist with it. Gratitude also reveals the impermanence of suffering. When you practice gratitude in hard times, you remind yourself that life is not all darkness. Even in sorrow, there are still sources of light: a kind word, a breath of fresh air, the support of a friend. These small lights remind you that no storm lasts forever. Gratitude keeps hope alive by showing you that even now, goodness still exists. Over time, gratitude becomes more than a practice. It becomes a way of seeing. You no longer have to force yourself to list blessings. You begin to see them everywhere. You wake up and feel thankful for another day. You face challenges and feel thankful for the chance to grow. You meet others and feel thankful for the connection, however brief. Gratitude becomes the lens through which you view the world, and through that lens, the world becomes more beautiful. Ultimately, gratitude in every circumstance reveals life's hidden good, because it trains the mind to focus on abundance rather than lack, on possibility rather than despair, on light rather than darkness. It does not deny suffering, but it refuses to let suffering blind you to the blessings that still remain. Gratitude is not only the response to goodness, it is the path to discovering goodness. So train yourself to practice gratitude, not only when life gives you what you want, but also when it does not. Be grateful for the lessons, for the strength, for the chance to grow. Be grateful for the simple miracles of daily life. Be grateful for the people who walk with you, for the opportunities still ahead, and for the breath that sustains you right now. Gratitude is not the end of practice, it is the foundation. With gratitude, contentment deepens, compassion expands, patience strengthens, and peace blossoms. With gratitude, you realize that the good you seek is not hidden far away. It is already here, waiting for your eyes to open. Compassion toward all beings opens the ultimate door to goodness. If there is one teaching that unites all of Buddhism, it is compassion. The Buddha's life itself was a demonstration of compassion. He left the comforts of his palace not for personal gain, but to understand human suffering and to discover a path that could help all beings. Compassion is not simply kindness, though kindness is part of it. Compassion is the deep recognition that all beings, humans, animals, even the smallest forms of life, share the same desire to avoid suffering and to experience happiness. When you truly realize this, your heart cannot remain closed. Compassion becomes as natural as breathing, and in that compassion, you discover the greatest good of all. Compassion begins with empathy. It is the ability to imagine the pain of another as if it were your own. When you see someone struggling, instead of judging, you pause and ask, what must it feel like to carry their burden? This shift in perception softens the heart. Where there was once impatience or anger, compassion plants understanding. You may still disagree with someone's actions, but you no longer reduce them to those actions. You see the suffering beneath, and that recognition itself becomes an act of goodness. Too often, we divide the world into us and them. We extend compassion only to those we like, those who agree with us, those who treat us kindly. But true compassion has no boundaries. It extends even to those who hurt us, not because their actions are acceptable, but because we recognize that their cruelty is born of ignorance, fear, or unresolved pain. This is perhaps the hardest practice of all, to wish well even for those who wish you harm. Yet it is also the most liberating. Hatred keeps you chained to anger. Compassion frees you to live in peace. Compassion also dissolves the illusion of separateness. Buddhism teaches that all life is interconnected. The air you breathe was exhaled by trees. The food you eat grew from soil nourished by countless microorganisms. The clothes you wear were stitched by hands you may never meet. Every moment of your life is supported by countless visible and invisible beings. To live without compassion is to live in denial of this truth. To live with compassion is to honor the web of life that sustains you. When you train your mind to see the good, compassion becomes the greatest teacher, because compassion always notices the goodness hidden beneath suffering. When you see someone acting in anger, compassion asks, what wound is behind this anger? When you see someone addicted, compassion asks, what pain are they trying to numb? When you see someone arrogant, compassion asks, what insecurity hides behind this mask? Compassion reveals that even harmful actions arise from unmet needs, from suffering that was never healed. This realization does not excuse harm, but it does change how you respond. Instead of adding more hatred to the world, you respond with understanding, boundaries, and care. Compassion also extends to animals and the natural world. When you realize that all beings seek safety and freedom from pain, your heart naturally softens toward animals. You recognize that the bird desires to fly free, the dog desires companionship, the cow desires to live in peace. Compassion expands your circle of concern beyond the human species, reminding you that the earth itself is alive and deserving of care. A compassionate heart does not exploit or destroy recklessly, it nurtures and protects. On a personal level, compassion is essential for inner healing. Many people are harsh toward themselves, carrying guilt, shame, and self-criticism. But you cannot truly extend compassion to others if you have not first tasted it yourself. Self-compassion means speaking to yourself with gentleness, forgiving your mistakes, and treating your wounds with kindness. It means recognizing that you too are a being struggling to find peace in a world of impermanence. When you practice compassion inwardly, you build the strength to extend it outwardly without exhaustion. Practical compassion can take many forms. It may be as simple as listening fully when someone speaks, offering a smile to a stranger, or helping someone in need. It may also be as profound as forgiving someone who hurt you, or standing up for justice with a heart free of hatred. Compassion is not only in grand gestures, it is in the small daily acts that remind others they are not alone. Every compassionate act creates ripples, spreading goodness far beyond what you can see. Buddhism offers the practice of metta, or loving-kindness meditation, as a way to cultivate compassion. In this practice, you silently repeat phrases such as, "May I be safe," "May I be happy," "May I be free from suffering." Then you extend these wishes to others, first to loved ones, then to neutral people, then to difficult people, and finally to all beings everywhere. Over time, this meditation expands your capacity to hold compassion, not just for those who are easy to love, but for all beings without exception. This universal compassion transforms the way you see the world. Compassion also brings immense peace to your own life. When you hold grudges, you are the one who suffers. When you envy, you are the one who burns inside. When you judge harshly, your heart hardens. Compassion dissolves these poisons. It softens anger, soothes envy, and melts judgment. Compassion frees you from the prison of negative emotions and allows you to live with openness and joy. Perhaps the most beautiful truth about compassion is that it multiplies the good in the world. When you show compassion to someone in pain, they often pass that kindness forward. A single act of compassion can ripple outward to touch countless lives. In this way, compassion does not only reveal goodness, it creates it. You become not just a witness to goodness, but a source of it. Over time, compassion reshapes your entire perception of reality. You stop seeing the world as divided into enemies and allies, winners and losers, good and bad. You begin to see everyone as fellow travelers on the same journey, carrying their own burdens, learning their own lessons, yearning for the same peace you seek. This vision is the ultimate door to goodness because it dissolves separation and reveals unity. Ultimately, compassion toward all beings is not only a moral choice, it is the deepest wisdom. It is the recognition that when others suffer, you cannot truly be at peace, and when others find joy, that joy can nourish you as well. Compassion teaches that your well-being is tied to the well-being of the whole. When you extend compassion universally, you are no longer a small self struggling alone. You are part of the vast heart of life itself. So train yourself daily in compassion. Begin with yourself, extend it to those close to you, and then expand it outward to strangers, animals, and even those you find difficult to love. Speak gently, forgive freely, help willingly, and most importantly, see deeply. See the suffering that hides behind harshness, the fear that hides behind anger, the longing that hides behind pride. When you see in this way, compassion becomes natural. Compassion toward all beings opens the ultimate door to goodness because it transforms not only how you see the world, but how you live in it. With compassion, every encounter becomes an opportunity to practice kindness. Every challenge becomes an invitation to respond with wisdom. Every day becomes a chance to create ripples of goodness that reach far beyond your own life. And in this boundless compassion, you discover the deepest peace, the realization that you are not separate, you are not alone, and you are never without the possibility of goodness. Compassion is the bridge that connects you to all life, and once you walk that bridge, you will see goodness everywhere. 18. The middle path reveals balance and lasting goodness. One of the most profound teachings of the Buddha is the middle path. When he first began his search for enlightenment, he tried extreme indulgence and extreme renunciation. As a prince, he lived in luxury, drowning in pleasures, yet he found no peace. Later, he practiced severe austerities, starving himself and pushing his body to its limits, yet he still found no peace. It was only when he discovered the middle path, a life of balance, avoiding extremes, that clarity and liberation emerged. The middle path is not just a teaching for monks or spiritual seekers. It is a principle for every human life. Most suffering comes from living in extremes, working too much or too little, loving with obsession or with detachment, speaking too harshly or not speaking at all. Extremes create imbalance, and imbalance creates suffering. The middle path reminds us that peace lies in balance. When you train your mind to see the good, you must also train it to walk the middle path, because only in balance can goodness fully reveal itself. Consider your relationship with desires. Too much indulgence creates restlessness. You eat without limit, you chase pleasure without pause, and instead of joy you feel emptiness. On the other hand, rejecting all desires completely creates bitterness and rigidity. The middle path says, enjoy life's pleasures with mindfulness and moderation, without clinging. You can eat, love, and create, but without being enslaved by craving. This balanced approach reveals the goodness of enjoyment without the chains of addiction. The middle path also applies to work and rest. Many people live in the extreme of overwork, sacrificing health and relationships for achievement. Others live in the extreme of idleness, wasting potential in laziness. Both extremes steal peace. The middle path teaches balance, work with dedication, but also rest with intention. When you balance effort and relaxation, life feels lighter, and you see goodness in both productivity and stillness. Even in emotions, extremes cause harm. Too much anger blinds judgment, but total suppression of anger poisons the heart. Too much attachment suffocates love, but cold indifference kills connection. The middle path teaches balance. Acknowledge your emotions, but do not let them control you. Express love, but without clinging. Defend boundaries, but without hatred. In this balance, you discover goodness in emotions themselves, as guides rather than enemies. The middle path is not mediocrity. It does not mean choosing the bland middle of every choice or avoiding passion. It means avoiding extremes that create suffering and choosing balance that nurtures wisdom. Think of a musical instrument. If a string is too tight, it breaks. If it is too loose, it makes no sound. Only when it is tuned with balance does it produce beautiful music. Your life is the same. Too much force or too much neglect creates suffering. Balance creates harmony. Walking the middle path requires mindfulness. Extremes are tempting because they seem easier. It feels simpler to give in completely to desire or to reject everything and withdraw. Balance, however, requires awareness in each moment. It requires asking, am I clinging too tightly? Am I avoiding too harshly? Am I living in balance, or am I trapped in an extreme? This self-reflection helps you step back onto the middle path whenever you wander. The middle path also reveals the good in imperfection. Extremes demand perfection. I must always succeed. I must never fail. I must be this, not that. But life is not perfect. When you walk the middle path, you accept imperfection with grace. You realize that mistakes are part of learning, setbacks are part of growth, and even flaws carry hidden goodness. Balance allows you to live without the crushing weight of perfectionism. This teaching also transforms how you see others. Without balance, you judge people harshly, dividing them into good and bad, right and wrong. But the middle path reminds you that people, like yourself, are complex. They have both strengths and weaknesses, both light and shadow. When you accept this balance, you see others with compassion instead of condemnation. You see their goodness without denying their flaws. Another gift of the middle path is resilience. Extremes break easily. A person who never rests collapses from exhaustion. A person who avoids all challenges becomes fragile. But balance creates strength, like a tree that bends in the wind but does not snap. A balanced mind adapts to life's storms. It does not cling to extremes. It flows with conditions. This resilience allows you to see goodness even in challenges, because you are not consumed by them. The middle path also extends to spirituality itself. Some people chase enlightenment as if it were a trophy, clinging to practice with obsession. Others reject practice entirely, lost in distraction. Both miss the point. The middle path says practice steadily, but without obsession. Meditate, reflect, and live mindfully, but also laugh, love, and engage with the world. Spirituality is not about escaping life. It is about living it fully, with balance and awareness. Let us bring this teaching into practical life. Imagine facing failure. An extreme reaction might be despair, believing you are worthless. Another extreme might be denial, pretending nothing happened. The middle path response is acceptance and learning. Yes, I failed. It hurts, but it is not the end. I can grow from this. This balance allows you to see the hidden goodness in failure. Or consider relationships. An extreme might be total dependence, believing you cannot live without the other person. Another extreme might be cold independence, refusing to need anyone. The middle path is interdependence, caring deeply but maintaining your own wholeness. In this balance, love becomes free of fear, and its goodness shines more brightly. Walking the middle path also helps with inner dialogue. An extreme might be constant self-criticism, while another extreme might be blind self-indulgence. The middle path is self-compassion, acknowledging mistakes honestly, but with kindness. This balance allows you to grow without hatred and to love yourself without arrogance. Buddhism reminds us that the middle path is not a one-time decision, it is a daily practice. Each day you may drift toward extremes. Some days you overwork, other days you procrastinate, some days you cling, other days you reject. The key is not to expect perfect balance at all times, but to keep returning. Balance is not a static state, it is a continuous adjustment like walking. Each step may lean left or right, but together they keep you moving forward. Over time, the middle path becomes second nature. You stop swinging wildly between extremes. You stop burning out from excess or collapsing from neglect. Your mind steadies, your heart softens. Your life becomes more harmonious, and in that harmony, you see goodness more clearly, because goodness often lives in balance, hidden from those trapped in extremes. Ultimately, the middle path reveals that peace and goodness are not found in extremes of indulgence or denial, of passion or apathy, of control or avoidance. They are found in the quiet balance of living fully, wisely and compassionately. The middle path is not the easiest road, but it is the road of freedom. And when you walk it, you discover that the good you were seeking has been present all along, waiting in the balance between too much and too little, between clinging and rejecting, between despair and blind hope. 19. Presence turns every moment into a field of goodness. If there is one treasure people keep searching for in the wrong places, it is the present moment. Most minds live either in the past, replaying mistakes, regrets and what-ifs, or in the future, chasing dreams, worrying about possibilities and fearing what may come. Rarely do we rest in the now, the only time that truly exists. Buddhism teaches that presence, the art of being fully here, in this breath, in this step, in this heartbeat, transforms everything. Presence is not simply about awareness. Presence is about seeing the goodness that is always available, but usually overlooked because the mind is elsewhere. When you live in the past, you carry burdens that no longer belong to you. When you live in the future, you carry burdens that have not yet arrived. Both ways steal the goodness of the moment. Presence frees you. It reminds you that right now you are alive, you are breathing, and in this breath there is already enough. The mind constantly tells you that happiness lies out there in tomorrow's success or yesterday's memory. But presence whispers, happiness is here if only you stop and see. Think of eating a simple meal. Without presence, you rush, distracted, barely tasting the food, your mind lost in thoughts. The goodness of the meal is invisible. With presence, you notice the smell, the taste, the texture, the miracle that food even reached your plate. You feel gratitude for the rain, the sun, the farmers, the earth. Suddenly, an ordinary meal becomes extraordinary. The food has not changed, your presence has. This is the power of presence. It reveals the hidden goodness already here. Presence also transforms relationships. How many conversations are wasted because people are not really listening? One person speaks while the other is planning a reply, scrolling through a phone, or drifting in thought. The result is disconnection. But when you are fully present with someone, you give them the rare gift of complete attention. You hear not only their words, but their tone, their pauses, their emotions. You see their humanity. This presence builds trust, love, and understanding. It turns ordinary interactions into sacred exchanges of connection. On a deeper level, presence teaches you to accept life as it is, without wishing it were different. The present moment is often simple: breath, body, surroundings. The mind complicates it by saying, "This is not enough. I need more. I need better. I need different." Presence silences this craving by grounding you in the reality that this moment, as it is, holds goodness. You may not have everything you want, but you always have something to appreciate. A breath, a sound, a view, a touch of air on your skin, all are small but profound gifts, revealed only when you are present. Presence also frees you from fear. Most fears exist not in the present, but in imagined futures. You worry about what might happen tomorrow, next week, or next year. Yet in the actual present, you are breathing, alive and safe. Fear vanishes when you return to the now, because the present moment rarely contains the catastrophe the mind imagines. By practicing presence, you train yourself to see the goodness of safety, calmness, and possibility that exists right here, right now. The practice of mindfulness meditation is essentially the training of presence. You sit, you breathe, and you notice. The mind drifts into the past or future, but gently you return to the breath. Each return is an act of presence. Over time, this practice strengthens your ability to remain in the now, even during daily life. You discover that presence is not limited to meditation cushions. It is available while walking, eating, working, or even facing challenges. Presence also deepens your connection to impermanence. When you are present, you notice that every moment is unique and fleeting. This breath will never return. This sunset will never happen again in the same way. This conversation, this smile, this silence, they are once-in-a-lifetime experiences. Presence makes you cherish them. Without presence, life blurs into a routine. With presence, life becomes precious. You see goodness not because life has changed, but because your awareness has sharpened. Another gift of presence is freedom from overthinking. Many people suffer not from reality itself, but from the endless commentary their mind adds to it. A simple mistake becomes a spiral of self-criticism. A neutral silence becomes a breeding ground for anxiety. Presence breaks this cycle. When you are present, you are focused on what is happening, not on the mind's stories about it. You return to the raw experience, the breath, the sound, the sensation. This simplicity reveals peace. Presence also connects you with compassion. When you are fully present with another person's suffering, you no longer rush to fix, deny, or avoid it. You simply witness with an open heart. That presence itself becomes healing. Often people do not need solutions as much as they need to feel seen. Presence says, "I am here with you. You are not alone." This kind of presence is one of the purest expressions of goodness. On a personal level, presence heals self-criticism. Many people live in judgment of themselves, stuck in past mistakes or anxious about future failures. Presence pulls you out of these traps. It says, "You are here now, you are breathing, you are alive. That is enough." This acceptance quiets the inner critic and allows self-compassion to grow. You realize that in this moment, you do not need to be perfect, you only need to be present. The challenge of presence is that the mind is restless. It constantly pulls you away with thoughts, memories, and plans. But the practice is simple. Notice the wandering and gently return. Do this again and again, and presence becomes more natural. It is like training a puppy. At first it runs everywhere, but with patience it learns to stay close. The mind, too, can be trained to rest in the now. Practical ways to cultivate presence include mindful breathing, mindful walking, and mindful pauses. Throughout your day, pause for a moment. Notice your breath, notice your body, notice your surroundings. These small pauses anchor you in the present. Over time, they build the habit of presence. Until you no longer need to force it, it becomes your way of being. Presence also reveals that goodness is not something you must chase. It is always here, in every moment. The laughter of a child, the beauty of a flower, the kindness of a stranger, the miracle of breath, all are present right now. The problem is not the absence of goodness, but the absence of presence. When you are distracted, you miss it. When you are present, you see it. Ultimately, presence turns every moment into a field of goodness. It transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary, the simple into the sacred, the fleeting into the eternal. When you live in presence, you stop waiting for happiness to arrive in the future. You stop replaying the past in search of meaning. You realize that life itself right now is the gift, and in that realization, the good you are seeking is revealed, bright, abundant, and already here. 20. Wisdom transforms how you see, and seeing clearly is the greatest good. The Buddha often said that wisdom is the greatest wealth. Unlike material possessions, wisdom cannot be stolen, cannot decay, and cannot be destroyed. Unlike external achievements, wisdom does not depend on circumstances. It arises from within, through deep seeing and understanding. Wisdom is not simply knowledge. Knowledge fills the mind with information. But wisdom transforms the way you perceive reality, and when perception changes, everything changes. Wisdom teaches you not only to live, but to live well. It reveals that goodness is not hidden in some faraway place. It is already here, waiting for the eyes to see clearly. At its heart, wisdom is seeing things as they are. Most suffering comes not from reality itself, but from the distorted way we perceive reality. We see permanence in what is temporary, self in what is not self, satisfaction in what cannot satisfy. These distortions create clinging, craving, and conflict. Wisdom clears the fog. It shows you that everything changes, that the self is a flowing process rather than a fixed identity, and that true peace does not come from external pleasures, but from inner freedom. With this clear seeing, the mind stops chasing illusions and begins to notice the goodness already present. Consider how perception shapes experience. Two people may face the same situation, yet one sees only misery while the other sees opportunity. One interprets failure as the end, the other as a teacher. One sees imperfection as shame, the other as beauty. The situation is the same, but wisdom in perception changes everything. Wisdom is like light in a dark room. It does not change the furniture, but it allows you to see clearly where everything is. Once you see clearly, you stop stumbling, you stop hurting yourself, and you begin to move with ease. Wisdom also transforms how you see yourself. Many people live with distorted self-perceptions. They define themselves by failures, wounds, or the opinions of others. This creates self-hatred, insecurity, and endless striving. Wisdom reveals that you are more than your mistakes, more than your achievements, more than your roles. You are a living, breathing process, always changing, always capable of growth. This understanding softens self-judgment and opens the door to self-compassion. It allows you to see the goodness in yourself, even when you are imperfect. Another gift of wisdom is compassion. When you see clearly, you realize that all beings are struggling in their own ways. Anger arises from pain, cruelty arises from ignorance, selfishness arises from fear. With this insight, judgment fades and compassion grows. You may still set boundaries or oppose harm, but you do so without hatred. You act with clarity, not with blind reactivity. Wisdom allows you to see not only the actions of others, but the suffering beneath them, and this vision awakens compassion as a natural response. Wisdom also changes how you see suffering itself. Without wisdom, suffering feels meaningless, a punishment or an obstacle. With wisdom, suffering becomes a teacher. Pain reveals the impermanence of life, reminding you to cherish what you have. Failure reveals resilience, showing you that you can rise again. Loss deepens love, teaching you to treasure relationships while they last. Wisdom does not deny suffering, but it reframes it. It reveals the hidden goodness that suffering can bring, the growth, the lessons, the compassion it awakens. In daily life, wisdom is practical. It shows you where to place your attention. Instead of obsessing over what you cannot control, wisdom directs you to what you can. Instead of clinging to what is temporary, wisdom teaches you to let go with grace. Instead of chasing endless desires, wisdom points you toward contentment. Wisdom is not abstract. It is a guide for how to live peacefully in each moment. Wisdom also reveals balance. Extremes are often born of ignorance, indulgence in pleasure without seeing its limits, rejection of life without seeing its value. The middle path arises from wisdom, the clear seeing that both extremes lead to suffering. Balance is not weakness, it is strength born of understanding. When you see clearly, you no longer swing wildly between extremes, you walk steadily, calmly, with peace. One of the deepest aspects of wisdom is the realization of interdependence. We often see ourselves as separate individuals, cut off from others, but wisdom reveals that everything is connected. Your breath depends on trees, your food depends on soil, rain, and the labor of countless hands. Your emotions are shaped by relationships, culture, and history. To harm others is to harm yourself. To help others is to help yourself. With this wisdom, compassion becomes natural, and the goodness of life becomes more visible. Wisdom also brings freedom from illusions. The mind often believes that happiness lies in external conditions. If I have more money, then I'll be happy. If people approve of me, then I'll be happy. If I avoid all pain, then I'll be happy. But wisdom sees that these are illusions. Money, approval, and avoidance are temporary and unreliable. True peace comes not from chasing illusions, but from understanding reality and living in harmony with it. This freedom allows you to see goodness not as something to chase, but as something already present in the simple reality of each moment. Practical ways to cultivate wisdom include meditation, reflection, and study. Meditation trains the mind to see thoughts and emotions clearly, without distortion. Reflection allows you to examine experiences and learn from them. Study of teachings provides guidance and perspective. But wisdom is not gained only from books or teachers, it is gained from life itself when you approach it with mindfulness and openness. Every challenge, every joy, every encounter can teach you if you are willing to see. Wisdom also requires humility. To see clearly, you must admit that you do not already know everything. The ego resists this, preferring certainty and pride, but wisdom grows in a humble heart, one that says, "I am still learning. I may not see the whole picture. I am open." Humility opens the door for wisdom to enter because it clears the fog of arrogance that blinds perception. Another dimension of wisdom is patience. Wisdom knows that truth unfolds slowly, like a flower blooming. You cannot force understanding. Sometimes you live through experiences you do not comprehend, only to realize their meaning years later. Wisdom waits without rushing, trusts without forcing, and sees that clarity comes in its own time. This patience itself is a form of goodness, because it prevents despair in times of confusion. Over time, wisdom reshapes your entire way of living. You no longer chase every desire, fear every change, or collapse at every difficulty. You see with calm eyes, you walk with steady steps, you speak with clarity, you act with compassion. Life becomes less about struggle and more about harmony. And in that harmony, the goodness of existence becomes visible everywhere. Ultimately, wisdom transforms how you see, and seeing clearly is the greatest good, because when you see clearly, you no longer live as a prisoner of illusions. You no longer miss the blessings around you. You no longer waste energy fighting with reality. You live in balance, in compassion, in gratitude, in peace. And in this way, wisdom does not just help you see the good, it reveals that goodness was always here, woven into the fabric of life itself. So let your practice of presence, patience, compassion, gratitude, and letting go all lead you toward wisdom. For wisdom is not separate from them, it is their flowering. And when wisdom blooms, your entire perception shifts. The world becomes brighter, not because it has changed, but because you have learned to see. And in that clear vision, you realize that life itself is a field of goodness, waiting to be recognized, appreciated, and lived fully. 21. Equanimity brings unshakable peace and reveals the good beyond circumstances. If compassion is the open heart and wisdom is the clear eye, then equanimity is the steady ground upon which both can stand. In Buddhist teaching, equanimity, upekkha, is the ability to remain balanced and calm in the face of life's constant changes. It is not cold detachment or indifference, as some mistakenly think. Rather, it is the quiet strength of a mind that does not get tossed around by every wave of gain and loss, praise and blame, pleasure and pain. When equanimity is present, you discover that goodness is not something fragile, dependent on circumstances. It is something steady, accessible at all times, because your mind no longer collapses under the weight of change. Most people live as if they are riding a roller coaster. When life goes their way, they are happy. When it doesn't, they are miserable. When praised, they feel worthy. When criticized, they feel worthless. When they win, they rejoice. When they fail, they despair. Their peace is entirely at the mercy of conditions they cannot fully control. This is why life feels so unstable, like walking on shifting ground. Equanimity is the ability to step off this roller coaster, to stand on solid earth, and to live with peace regardless of whether life gives you sunshine or storm. Equanimity does not mean denying emotions. You still feel joy, sadness, anger, and love. The difference is that you do not drown in them. You observe them with balance, like waves rising and falling on the surface of the ocean, while you remain anchored in the depths. This anchoring gives you freedom. You are not numb, but you are not enslaved either. Equanimity is the ability to care deeply without being consumed, to love fully without clinging, to endure pain without despair. The Buddha described equanimity as the perfect balance that protects the mind from being dragged into extremes. It works hand in hand with compassion. Without equanimity, compassion may turn into burnout because you are overwhelmed by the suffering you see. Without equanimity, joy may turn into greed because you cling to pleasant feelings and fear their loss. But with equanimity, compassion remains strong without collapsing, and joy remains pure without attachment. Equanimity steadies the heart so it can hold everything with grace. Consider a farmer who plants seeds. If he is impatient, he will dig them up every day to check their growth, becoming frustrated when they do not sprout quickly. If he is arrogant, he may believe he controls every aspect of their growth. But a wise farmer plants, waters, protects, and then accepts that some conditions, sun, rain, soil, are beyond his control. He works diligently, but without attachment to outcome. This is equanimity in action, effort balanced with acceptance, care balanced with surrender. Equanimity also transforms relationships. Many conflicts arise because we react impulsively to words and actions, taking everything personally. If someone criticizes us, we burn with anger. If someone ignores us, we feel wounded. But with equanimity, you learn to pause before reacting. You ask, is this criticism truly about me, or about their own pain? Is this silence a rejection, or just a reflection of their mood? Instead of being shaken by every action of others, you remain steady. This steadiness allows love to deepen, because it is no longer fragile, dependent on constant validation. On a personal level, equanimity brings freedom from the endless chase of desire. When you lack equanimity, you are constantly running after what you want and running away from what you dislike. This restless chase blinds you to the goodness already around you. Equanimity allows you to stop running. You can enjoy what is pleasant without fear of losing it. You can endure what is unpleasant without collapsing in despair. Life becomes lighter, not because conditions are perfect, but because your relationship to them is balanced. Equanimity is also the key to resilience. When storms of life arrive, illness, loss, disappointment, a mind without equanimity panics, resists, and suffers deeply. The mind with equanimity acknowledges the storm, feels the rain, but remains rooted. This is why Buddhist texts often compare equanimity to a great tree. Winds may bend its branches, but its roots keep it standing. When you develop equanimity, you too can face life's winds without being uprooted. Practical ways to cultivate equanimity include mindfulness, reflection on impermanence, and meditation on balance. Mindfulness helps you notice your reactions before they control you. Reflection on impermanence reminds you that all feelings, whether pleasant or unpleasant, will pass. Meditation on equanimity involves silently repeating phrases such as, "May I remain balanced," "May I remain calm," "May I see all beings with equal compassion." These practices slowly reshape the mind to be steady, like training a muscle of balance. Equanimity also arises from wisdom. When you truly understand that life is impermanent, that pleasure and pain both come and go, you stop clinging to one and fearing the other. You accept both as part of the human experience. This wisdom naturally creates balance. Without wisdom, equanimity can feel forced. With wisdom, it feels natural. You realize, I cannot stop the waves, but I can learn to surf. I cannot stop change, but I can meet it with peace. Another gift of equanimity is fairness. Without balance, we often show compassion selectively, favoring some and excluding others. But equanimity expands compassion to all beings equally. You stop dividing the world into friends and enemies. You see that everyone, even those who harm you, is driven by the same wish to avoid suffering and find happiness. This does not mean you allow harm. It means you act with justice instead of hatred. Equanimity keeps compassion pure and universal. Over time, equanimity reveals that goodness is not fragile. Most people believe they can only be happy when circumstances are favorable. But equanimity teaches that true peace does not depend on circumstances. It arises from within, from the balance of the mind. This realization is liberating. You stop living as a victim of external conditions. You stop postponing happiness until the world changes. You realize that peace and goodness are available here and now if your mind is balanced. Equanimity also deepens presence. When you are unshaken by ups and downs, you can fully engage with the moment. You no longer rush to escape discomfort or cling to pleasure. You simply experience life as it is with openness. This openness reveals the richness of each moment, the small joys, the lessons, the connections. In equanimity, Life itself becomes a field of goodness because you are no longer blinded by extremes. Ultimately, equanimity is the crown of practice. Compassion opens the heart. Patience steadies the mind. Gratitude sharpens vision. Letting go frees the spirit. Presence grounds you in the now. But equanimity binds them all together, ensuring that your peace is not fragile, your joy is not fleeting, and your compassion is not selective. It makes you like a mountain, calm, steady, enduring. So train yourself in equanimity. When pleasure comes, enjoy it, but do not cling. When pain comes, endure it, but do not despair. When praised, remain humble. When blamed, remain grounded. When you succeed, stay balanced. When you fail, stay balanced. This is not indifference, it is wisdom. It is the realization that life is always changing, but your peace does not have to vanish with every change. Equanimity brings unshakable peace and reveals the good beyond circumstances. Because in equanimity, you discover that peace is not the absence of storms, it is the ability to remain steady within them. And when you live from this steadiness, every moment, no matter how it appears, reveals some hidden goodness. You begin to see that the true treasure of life is not controlling what happens, but cultivating a mind that remains free, balanced, and compassionate in the midst of it all. 22. Freedom of the mind reveals the purest good. If you observe carefully, you will notice that most of life's suffering does not come from the outside world. It comes from the prison of the mind. The body may face illness, but the mind adds fear and despair. A person may say harsh words, but the mind holds on, replaying them over and over, keeping the wound alive. Circumstances may change, but the mind clings to old attachments or anxiously grasps at the future. The Buddha taught that liberation, the deepest peace and goodness, comes not by controlling the outer world, but by freeing the mind. Freedom of the mind is not about escaping life. It is not about leaving behind responsibilities, relationships, or the human experience. It is about changing the way you relate to them. A free mind can live in the same world as a trapped mind, but experiences it completely differently. The trapped mind is enslaved by craving, aversion, and ignorance. The free mind sees clearly, accepts reality, and moves with wisdom. This freedom is the purest form of goodness because it is not dependent on conditions. It cannot be taken away by fortune or misfortune, praise or blame, gain or loss. One of the first chains that bind the mind is craving. We constantly believe happiness lies in getting what we want: more money, more recognition, more comfort. For a moment, desire satisfied brings pleasure, but soon the mind craves again, and the cycle continues endlessly. A free mind still enjoys life's blessings, but it is not enslaved by them. It can appreciate beauty without clinging, success without arrogance, and relationships without fear of loss. The goodness here is not in endless possession, but in freedom from possession. Another chain is aversion, the constant resistance to what we dislike. Pain, loss, criticism, failure. When these arrive, the mind pushes them away with anger, denial, or despair. But resistance only strengthens suffering. The free mind does not cling to pain, but it also does not run from it. It sees discomfort as part of life's flow, a passing visitor that comes and goes. In this acceptance, suffering loses its power. The goodness here is the strength to endure without bitterness, to suffer without becoming suffering itself. Ignorance is the deepest chain of all, the failure to see reality as it is. We believe in permanence where there is impermanence. We believe in a fixed self where there is only process. We believe that external things can bring lasting peace when they cannot. This ignorance keeps us trapped in illusions. Wisdom cuts through ignorance like light dispels darkness. A free mind sees change as natural, the self as fluid, and peace as inward. With this clarity, goodness is revealed not in illusions but in truth. Freedom of the mind also transforms relationships. Many people try to control others, demanding love, validation, or obedience. This control is a form of inner slavery. It ties your peace to someone else's actions. A free mind loves without chains. It can care deeply but does not collapse if rejected. It can forgive because it is not enslaved by resentment. It can rejoice in others' happiness because it is not trapped in comparison. This freedom makes love pure, compassionate, and joyful. On a personal level, freedom means letting go of the harsh inner critic. Many people are prisoners of their own self-judgment, constantly punishing themselves for not being enough. A free mind practices self-compassion. It acknowledges mistakes but does not identify with them. It forgives itself, learns, and grows. This inner freedom is the foundation for outer peace, because a mind at war with itself cannot see goodness clearly in the world. Freedom also arises in the practice of letting go. Imagine carrying a heavy rope in a tug-of-war with life. You pull and pull, exhausted, trying to win, but the rope only burns your hands. Freedom is not winning the tug-of-war, it is letting go of the rope. Suddenly, you are no longer trapped in the struggle. This does not mean life becomes easy, but it means you are no longer bound to suffering unnecessarily. You can walk forward, hands open, heart light. The Buddha described the mind as like a bird in the sky. When free, it leaves no trace. It moves without clinging, without fear, without chains. This image is profound. It reminds us that freedom is not about escaping the sky of life. It is about learning to move within it without leaving the marks of attachment and aversion. In freedom, the mind is vast, spacious, and at peace. Practical ways to cultivate freedom include meditation, mindfulness, and reflection. In meditation, you observe thoughts without clinging or resisting. This simple practice teaches the mind that it does not have to obey every thought. In mindfulness, you live with awareness, seeing clearly the causes of suffering and choosing differently. In reflection, you remind yourself of impermanence, interdependence, and compassion, loosening the chains of ignorance. Slowly, these practices weaken the prison bars until the mind tastes freedom. Freedom of the mind also allows you to see goodness in places you never expected. With a free mind, even difficulty can be seen as teacher. Even loss can be seen as reminder of love. Even imperfection can be seen as beauty. A trapped mind only sees problems. A free mind sees possibilities. This is why freedom is the purest good. It transforms not the outer world, but the way you experience it. Over time, this freedom deepens into equanimity. The mind becomes like a vast sky. Storms may pass, but they do not disturb the sky itself. Joys may come, sorrows may go, but the mind remains steady. This steadiness allows you to live fully without fear. You can embrace life's pleasures without clinging, face life's pains without despair, and walk life's path with peace. Ultimately, freedom of the mind is liberation. It is the end of unnecessary suffering. It is the realization that you are not your cravings, not your aversions, not your illusions. You are the awareness that sees them, the spaciousness that holds them. In this freedom, life itself becomes lighter, brighter, and filled with goodness. So ask yourself, what is chaining my mind? Is it desire, fear, control, self-judgment, illusion? Whatever it is, know that you can let it go. You can practice, little by little, until the chains loosen. And when the mind is free, you will see what was always true. The good was never missing, it was hidden behind the prison walls. With freedom, those walls fall, and life itself shines as pure goodness. 23. Simplicity clears the clutter and reveals life's natural goodness. One of the greatest illusions of the modern world is that happiness requires more possessions, more achievements, more recognition, more distractions. People fill their lives with objects, with obligations, with noise, believing that each new addition will finally bring the satisfaction they seek. Yet the more they accumulate, the heavier they feel. The house becomes larger but emptier. The schedule becomes busier but less meaningful. The mind becomes fuller but more restless. Buddhism reminds us that peace and goodness are not found in constant accumulation but in simplicity. Simplicity is not lack, it is clarity. It is the removal of what is unnecessary so that what is truly good can shine. Think of a pond covered with fallen leaves and debris. Beneath the surface, the water is pure and beautiful, but the clutter hides its depth. If you clear the surface, the water reveals its natural clarity. Your life is like this pond. Beneath the clutter of endless desires, distractions, and complications, there is already peace, already goodness, already enough. Simplicity is the act of clearing away the clutter so you can see and live in that goodness. Simplicity begins in the outer world. Look around your environment. How much of what surrounds you do you actually use or value? Many possessions sit untouched, gathering dust, yet they occupy space in your home and in your mind. Each object you own silently demands attention, cleaning, organizing, worrying about loss. By simplifying, by keeping only what is useful or meaningful, you lighten your environment and your spirit. The less clutter you carry, the freer you feel, and in that freedom, you notice goodness more easily, in the space, in the light, in the quiet. But simplicity is not only about possessions, it is also about time. Many people overfill their schedules, rushing from one task to another, never pausing to breathe. They believe busyness is proof of importance, but busyness often hides emptiness. Simplicity in time means learning to say no to what is unnecessary, to make space for what matters. Silence, presence, relationships, reflection. When your schedule is simple, your mind rests. When your mind rests, you begin to see the goodness already woven into each day. Simplicity also applies to speech. How often do people waste words in gossip, complaint, or meaningless chatter? Words, like possessions, can clutter the world. Simplicity in speech means speaking with intention, saying only what is true, kind, and necessary. This simplicity brings peace to relationships, because your words no longer create harm or noise. Silence, too, becomes valuable. In silence you hear the wind, the breath, the heartbeat of life. Silence itself becomes a reminder of goodness. On a deeper level, simplicity is about the mind. The greatest clutter is not in homes or schedules, but in thoughts. The mind left unchecked fills with endless commentary, regrets about the past, worries about the future, judgments of others, criticisms of self. This mental clutter blinds you to the simplicity of the present. Through mindfulness, you begin to notice this chatter and let it go. You return to the breath, to the body, to what is here now, and in this simplicity of mind, peace arises naturally. Simplicity also transforms relationships. When you let go of the need to impress, to compete, or to control, relationships become lighter. You can simply be with another person without pretense. Love becomes simpler, not about grand displays or endless demands, but about presence, kindness, and acceptance. In simplicity, love feels more authentic because it is no longer buried under expectation. Another gift of simplicity is gratitude. When you live simply, you notice and appreciate small things more deeply. A simple meal becomes a feast. A quiet walk becomes a meditation. A single flower becomes a miracle. With fewer distractions, your attention sharpens, and you see goodness where before you saw nothing special. Simplicity magnifies appreciation. Simplicity is not poverty, nor is it rejection of the world. It is wisdom in choosing. It is knowing that more is not always better, and that the pursuit of more often hides the goodness of what already is. A simple life does not mean you own nothing, do nothing, or withdraw completely. It means you choose carefully, live mindfully, and clear away what distracts from peace. In Buddhist practice, monks embody simplicity through their way of life. They own little, eat modestly, and live with few possessions. But the purpose is not deprivation, it is freedom. By simplifying their needs, they free their minds to focus on what matters: compassion, wisdom, presence. Even if you are not a monk, you can practice this principle by simplifying your own life in ways that suit you, reducing excess, focusing on essentials, and remembering that peace grows in uncluttered spaces. Practical ways to cultivate simplicity include decluttering your environment, simplifying your daily routines, practicing mindful consumption, and prioritizing what truly matters. Ask yourself regularly, do I really need this? Does this bring peace or clutter? The more you practice, the easier it becomes to choose simplicity over complication. Over time, simplicity reveals a profound truth. Life itself is already enough. The air you breathe, the ground beneath your feet, the beating of your heart, these simple things are extraordinary. The mind in its restless craving makes life complicated. But when you return to simplicity, you discover that goodness was always here, hidden beneath the clutter. Simplicity clears the path to presence, gratitude, compassion, and wisdom. It allows you to live with less distraction, and more clarity. It reminds you that happiness does not come from more, it comes from enough. And when you live simply, you see goodness not only in special moments, but in every moment, because your mind is no longer clouded by unnecessary noise. Ultimately, simplicity is freedom. Freedom from clutter, freedom from excess, freedom from illusion. It opens space for peace, for love, for truth. And in that open space, life reveals its natural goodness, pure, abundant, and already present. From the beginning of this journey, we have explored the ways in which the mind shapes reality. Each lesson has been a reminder that goodness is not absent from life. It is often hidden, overlooked, or drowned out by noise, distraction, and craving. By training your mind to see the good, you awaken to a truth that is both simple and profound. Life itself is already carrying the beauty, peace, and freedom you seek. The task is not to chase it endlessly, but to notice it, nurture it, and live from it. Through the lens of attention, we learned that where you place your focus determines what your life feels like. Attention is creative power. What you notice grows. Direct it toward blessings, kindness, and possibilities, and you live in a field of abundance. Through gratitude, we saw how the heart softens and expands. Gratitude in every circumstance, even in suffering, transforms burdens into lessons, scarcity into abundance, and ordinary moments into miracles. Gratitude is the soil in which peace blossoms. Through patience and presence, we discovered the strength to endure and the wisdom to savor. Life unfolds in its own time. A seed cannot be rushed into a tree. A moment missed can never return. By being patient with yourself, with others, and with life, you make space for growth. By being present, you finally stop missing the treasures that are right here, right now. Through letting go, we were reminded that clinging is the source of much suffering. We hold on to the past, to resentment, to illusions of control, and in doing so, we weigh ourselves down. Letting go is not loss, it is liberation. It clears space for peace, clarity, and new beginnings. Through equanimity, we touched the heart of unshakable peace. Life will always bring both joy and sorrow, praise and blame, gain and loss. But when the mind is balanced, it does not collapse in either extreme. It holds steady like a mountain, unshaken by storms, open to all of life without fear. Through compassion, we learn that seeing the good is not only about ourselves but about others. Every being longs to be free of suffering. Every harsh action hides a wound. Compassion sees beneath appearances and responds with understanding. It dissolves hatred, expands connection, and turns you into a source of goodness in the world. Through simplicity, we realize that life's natural goodness is often buried under clutter, possessions, distractions, endless busyness. By clearing what is unnecessary, you uncover what is already enough. Simplicity does not take away, it reveals. Through wisdom, we saw that true vision is not about changing the world, but about seeing it clearly. Delusions of permanence, self and satisfaction keep us trapped. Wisdom dispels them, showing us the reality of change, interdependence, and inner freedom. With wisdom, you stop chasing shadows and begin to live in truth. And through freedom of the mind, we touched the deepest liberation. To be free is not to escape life, but to live fully without being enslaved by craving, aversion, or illusion. A free mind moves like a bird in the sky, unburdened, vast, and at peace. Each of these lessons, attention, gratitude, patience, letting go, equanimity, compassion, simplicity, wisdom, freedom, are not separate practices. They are threads of the same cloth, aspects of the same path. Together they form a way of living that transforms suffering into peace, fear into love, and blindness into vision. Together they reveal that goodness is not something to be found in a distant future, but something to be uncovered in this very breath. And so, what is the essence of this journey? It is this: life gets better when you teach your mind to look for the good, because the good has always been here. The sunlight on your face, the breath in your lungs, the kindness of a stranger, the lesson hidden in failure, the strength awakened in suffering, the love that endures even after loss. These are not small things, they are the fabric of life itself. Buddhism teaches that suffering is inevitable, but unnecessary suffering is not. When you stop resisting reality, when you stop chasing illusions, when you stop overlooking the gifts before you, peace arises naturally. Seeing the good is not a naive denial of life's difficulties, it is a courageous choice to hold difficulties in one hand and blessings in the other, knowing that both are part of the whole. The mind, like a camera, can zoom in endlessly on flaws, pain, and despair, but it can also widen its lens to notice beauty, resilience, and compassion. The choice is always yours. You may not control what life gives you, but you can always control how you see it. And when you choose to see the good, you do not erase suffering, you transcend it. As this journey closes, let it not be an ending but a beginning. Let each lesson you have read become a seed planted in your heart, seeds of attention, gratitude, patience, compassion, simplicity, wisdom, and freedom. Water them daily with practice, with mindfulness, with kindness, with reflection. Over time, these seeds will grow into trees that shade your life with peace, that shelter others with love, that bear fruit for the world. The world does not need more noise, more clinging, more hatred, more blindness. The world needs people who see clearly, people who can hold steady in storms, people who can notice the hidden good and share it with others, people who live with presence, gratitude, and compassion. May you be one of those people. May you train your mind to see the good in all things. May you walk with balance, live with love, and rest in wisdom. And may you discover again and again that the goodness you have been seeking is not somewhere far away. It is here, it is now, it is always.